Chapter 181. A thunderous roar swept across the ancient battlefield as human cultivators erupted in excitement. Ye Cheng had claimed the 11th platform, an unprecedented achievement for any human prodigy. Behind him, 90 human demon platforms remained unoccupied, a stark reminder of how far the rest still had to go. From young geniuses to venerated elders, every human spectator locked eyes on Ye Cheng with undisguised eagerness. The youth whispered among themselves in awe, while the masters exchanged proud nods. In sharp contrast, Xianxia and the other Tianmo clan elites wore grim, sullen expressions. As Ye Cheng descended from the 11th platform, the Tianmo geniuses' tension visibly slackened. A flicker of relief crossed their faces, only for a moment. "This brat must be taken out first," Xianxia ground out, his voice cold and determined. Behind him, the Tianmo cultivators nodded furiously, their gazes dark with murderous intent. An attendant at Xianxia's side bowed low, then offered a flattering smile. "Your Highness, don't concern yourself over that upstart. We will handle him." Xianxia's lips curled into a vicious smile. "Good. Make sure he never sees the 12th platform. Although he's been called a monster, he's no match for the true prodigies of our clan." "Exactly. Your Highness needn't concern himself with such a trivial threat. A mere oddity. He couldn't possibly upheave our world." Prince Xianxia listened as the elite demons behind him nodded in vigorous agreement. One of them added with a proud tilt of his chin, "Let us not forget, we occupy 9 of the top 10 positions on the human demon rankings. Even if the lone mortal champion were somehow to claim first place, our demon clan would still reign unchallenged in their eyes." With each approving murmur, Xianxia's tension eased and a confident smile played at his lips. He was about to order a messenger dispatched to the ancient battlefield, to summon the senior lords of the heavenly demon clan and unleash their fury upon Ye Cheng, when a sudden vibration cut through the crowd. Buzz! The human demon stage thrummed with energy once more, and every cultivator, demon and human alike, turned their full attention toward the platform. Under that collective, awestruck gaze, silence fell like a drawn blade, and all waited to see what astonishing feat Ye Cheng would unveil next. Ye Cheng ascended the 10th tier of the human-demon platform with slow, unwavering steps. At the summit, he drew the spirit sword from his waist, its blade humming with latent power. A mocking voice rang out from below the stage. "Brother, are you really not going to give up?" At once, a ripple of astonishment ran through the assembled human cultivators, all eyes fixed on Ye Cheng, respect blossoming even among the venerable elder masters. Young prodigies, inspired by his defiance, felt their blood quicken. Here was the very backbone of humanity's genius, knowing defeat was likely, yet refusing to surrender without a fight. A roar of gratitude rose from the crowd. "Thank you, Brother Ye Cheng, for defending our human race in the arena." One after another, the human geniuses lining the plaza, led by their elders who had set aside sectarian rivalries, bowed in unison toward Ye Cheng. Across the void, the demon clans stared back. From the towering royal demons of Xianxia down to the lowest foot soldiers, their gazes burned with murderous hatred. Ye Cheng tightened his grip on the hilt. The platform's silence crackled with tension, and with that, the final battle between human and demon was about to begin. "Is this your game? Waiting to be beaten raw and dragged from the ring in disgrace? Not on my watch." Xianxia ground his teeth, eyes blazing with savage intent as he fixed his gaze on the demon assigned to guard the 10th gate. A frigid thrill ran through him. He was itching for a fight. In demon lore, those who stood watch at this threshold were infamous for their cruelty. They showed no mercy, not even to their own kind. Over the years, Ye Cheng had slain more demons than most humans, and his spectral projection had inherited every last shred of that bloodlust. "You'll do well to face me here again," Xianxia snarled. "After all, why should we waste time tracking you down? Better to watch your head roll right before us." He turned his cold smile toward Ye Cheng, who stood alone on the human-demon arena. Around them, rows of human and demon cultivators watched in tense anticipation, ready to witness whatever horrors this fateful duel would bring. Ye Cheng stood tall as the assembled warriors of his race, proud, grateful faces raised in salute, looked to him with unwavering admiration. A brief flush of emotion warmed his chest, but he kept his expression composed. His gaze shifted beyond his people to the spectral projections of Xianxia and the other demon lords hovering above the arena. From their lofty perches, the demons sneered openly at him. For a moment, Ye Cheng's trademark calm flickered. The corners of his mouth twitched upward, forming a slowly widening, mocking smile. "What makes you so certain I've reached my limit?" he asked, his voice carrying across the distance like a blade. "Did you truly believe that once I stepped onto the 10th stage, defeat was inevitable? Or that I came here merely to preserve my reputation?" A stunned hush fell over Xianxia and the other Tianmo clan prodigies. Their eyes darted among themselves, disbelief written in every line of their faces. Could it be? In that instant, they remembered the previous clash, the day this very prodigy had overthrown Emperor Qi Shaoshuan. And now, standing before them with unshakable confidence, was the same unparalleled genius. "That's right. If you can disguise yourself, then so can I," Ye Cheng declared, his tone laced with derision as he fixed his gaze on the shimmering projection of the 10th Ring Guardian. A mocking smile curved his lips. "You, whose killing power barely rivals a divine emperor, dare to bar my path." Before anyone could respond, Ye Cheng's sword flashed. A hiss of air split the silence, and under the astonished stares of both humans and demons, the mighty projection of the royal demon, renowned throughout demonic history for unmatched bloodlust, shattered like glass. But this was only the beginning. With battle speed escalating to frenzied heights, Ye Cheng pressed his advantage. His blade swept through the 9th Ring Guardian, cleaving it in two. In the next heartbeat, he obliterated the 8th Ring Protector with a single stroke. Then the 7th, gone in an instant. One by one, each projection succumbed to his relentless assault. Finally, only the 2nd stage Guardian remained. Ye Cheng drew a deep breath and brought his sword down again. The projection disintegrated into motes of spiritual energy, drifting away until nothing remained. With a surge of power, he ascended to the ultimate tier, the first human-demon stage, leaving every onlooker, human and demon alike, in awed silence. Ye Cheng stood before the spectral projection of the heavenly demon clan's legendary prodigy, an apparition whose renown towered above all others in the clan's storied history. All around him, the transformed demons and even the human cultivators aligned with Gu froze in disbelief. Their eyes reflected the aftershocks of a revelation they'd scarcely dared to imagine. Then Ye Cheng's voice rang out clearly across the grand arena. "Falling from the 9th heaven into hell, tell me, how does that feel?" A tense silence followed, broken only by the quickened breaths of onlookers. The young demon elites, Xianxia, Mozu, and the rest, felt their faces flush crimson at his taunt. Hatred and fury burned behind their eyes. Xianxia, the most hot-headed of the prodigies, opened his mouth to warn Ye Cheng against such brazen arrogance. After all, this guardian spirit was no mere novice. But before a single word could pass his lips, a sharp shing cut through the air. All eyes turned to the stage's center, where Ye Cheng now stood with one hand casually resting on his sword's hilt. The blade gleamed in the arena lights, a silent promise of decisive action, a promise that stilled the hearts of demon and human alike. In that moment, the battle's outcome felt sealed, and every soul present understood. Ye Cheng had seized the upper hand. Damnation sword array, fall. At Ye Cheng's command, 4 blazing sword shadows erupted behind him. They twisted like an inverted galaxy, cleaving the sky before plummeting into the sea of clouds. There they merged into a single, blinding pillar of light, towering like a celestial dragon and brimming with a lethal intent as fathomless as the ocean, capable of slaying gods and immortals alike. In the next heartbeat, that dragon-like beam descended without warning. The proud projection of the heavenly demon clan's greatest genius, standing on the human-demon stage, did not even have time to react. With a single slash from Ye Cheng's immortal executioner technique, it was shattered and wiped from existence. Ye Cheng exhaled, his voice calm as he surveyed the aftermath. 99 empty battle stages stretched out behind him, each one silent and still. "Now this place is finally clear," he said, a faint smile touching his lips as he faced the quiet, ancient battlefield. Chapter 182, a hush fell over the ancient battlefield, an absolute, overwhelming silence. Every warrior, whether human or demon, froze in place, eyes fixed on the cleared human-demon platforms. For once, not even the wind dared stir. Then Ye Cheng's voice rang out, "It's over." At his words, thousands of human cultivators finally exhaled together and surged to their feet. A thunderous cheer erupted, rolling across the field like a tidal wave. "We did it! Our race claimed the human-demon platform. We swept it all." Flags fluttered, horns blared, and people danced in the dust. Young prodigies leapt into the air as if weightless. Venerable masters wiped tears from their eyes, overcome by pride. Among them, two faces shone brightest of all, Jian Rushuang and his younger sister Yunxi. They stood on the sidelines, gazing up at Ye Cheng's lone figure striding across the platform, and their hearts swelled with joy. "That's my father! That's my father!" Yunxi clapped her hands, pointed, and hopped around in delight. Jian Rushuang offered a broad, proud smile. Around them, other cultivators bowed respectfully, gratitude shining in their eyes. Not far away, the contingent from Yuhang Imperial Palace and their assembled allies watched in stunned silence. When reality finally settled in, surprise gave way to reluctant admiration. Even their stern expressions softened at the sight of Ye Cheng's triumph. On the once bloodied earth of the human-demon arena, the echoes of victory rang clear. Today, humanity stood first, and alone. Several senior masters of the Yuhang Imperial Palace suddenly recalled what Nalan Qingyuan and the others had mentioned earlier. In an instant, they all swiveled toward the young cultivators, their eyes blazing with curiosity. "Qingyuan, Zhiling," one elder spoke up, "do you know this mysterious swordsman?" Caught off guard by their intense gazes, Nalan Qingyuan, Sheng Jiling, and the Ying siblings exchanged uneasy looks. They weren't surprised by the elder's excitement, for anyone who had witnessed the nameless swordsman's display on the ring could see he was destined for greatness. Before long, his name would echo across the 3,000 realms and throughout Nanshuan Divine Continent. Bards would sing his praises, and historians would record his legacy. A prodigy like him must surely have a formidable master behind him, and forging a connection with such a talent could elevate the standing of the Yuhang Imperial Palace for centuries. Yet despite the elders' hopeful expressions, Qingyuan and the others had nothing to share. They forced polite smiles. "Elders, you've misunderstood," Nalan Qingyuan began gently. "We don't actually know him. We only met that Taoist brother once and haven't exchanged more than a few words," one of the Yuhang Imperial Palace elders protested. "If you doubt it, you saw his attack with your own eyes." At that, the veteran masters of Yuhang Imperial Palace couldn't help but frown in disappointment. Their gazes drifted to Ye Cheng standing calmly on the arena stage, and envy shone in their eyes, not for his martial skill, but for the formidable backing he must possess. Which sect, they wondered, had the good fortune to nurture such a prodigy? Across the field, the young geniuses of the Tianmo clan stood in stunned silence. This can't be real," one of them whispered, his voice trembling. "How could it happen?" "That was the projection of the Thousand Eyes Saint ancestor," another finally gasped. In the annals of the Sky Demon clan, the Thousand Eyes Saint ancestor was the mightiest demon lord ever recorded, and had fate not intervened, he might have ascended to emperor rank. Yet here was a mere human youth who had shattered even his final projection. What did that mean? That this unknown swordsman's potential outshone the greatest saint of the Sky Demon clan? How could such a monster exist among humankind? But just as the Sky Demon clan's finest were trying to process what they'd seen, a soft voice cut through the stunned silence. "No." The prodigue, eyes spun around, staring at Zimei. "What did you say?" someone asked. Zimei closed her eyes, drawing in a shaky breath. When she spoke again, her tone was barely more than a whisper. "This doesn't fit." She opened her eyes and fixed them on Ye Cheng, the human swordsman who had just displayed the legendary Zhu Xian sword formation. "He's not the same swordsman who defeated me before." A wave of shock washed over her. Two entirely different styles, two different masters of the blade, could not belong to the same person. The man who had almost killed her with one precise thrust was nothing like the one who had just unleashed that awe-inspiring formation of radiant swords. There must be another sword demon hidden among the humans, Zimei concluded, her voice trembling with disbelief. Her words hung in the air, and the assembled geniuses of the Sky Demon clan exchanged incredulous glances. It was unthinkable. Humanity could harbor not one, but two warriors of such fearsome skill. The realization left them speechless, their confidence wavering for the very first time. Zimei rushed back to her companions, her face pale with excitement. "There's still a human sword genius out there," she said, voice trembling. "Someone even stronger than that unknown swordsman. How can you not believe it?" Yuanye frowned and regarded her curiously. "Zimei, are you certain?" She simply nodded. That was all it took to set Yuya off. "Certain? Zimei, do you even know what you're saying? Calling the humans ants, how dare you?" "Ants." Zimei's eyes went cold. She pointed at the lone figure standing on the boundary platform between the human and demon realms, Ye Cheng, clad in white. "Look at him," she challenged. "Go ahead, say ant again. Or better yet, come with me. Next time I face that white-robed swordsman who nearly killed me, why don't you take your turn?" She let her words hang in the charged air. "You don't need to slay this mysterious swordsman outright," Zimei added, voice low and dangerous. "Just defeat the white-clad prodigy who almost took my life." "I will obey you from now on." Yuya's voice trembled as she knelt, eyes downcast. "Do you dare?" Zimei's words were ice-cold, each one pressing Yuya further into submission. Caught off guard, Yuya stumbled back, nearly falling. Her face drained of color, she looked utterly defeated. Around them, the other demon prodigies who'd scoffed at Zimei's warnings fell deathly silent. They dared not mock humans anymore. After all, they'd just witnessed one mysterious swordsman shatter the Thousand Eyes Saint Ancestor's projection. And now, here was talk of another warrior, clad in white, who had effortlessly subdued a prodigy of Zimei's caliber. Sixth Prince Yuanye raised a hand, halting the murmurs. His voice was as cold as steel. "That's enough. We'll discuss this no further. Whether it's the swordsman in white or this unknown warrior, they are no longer beings we can afford to scorn. Send word to Mozu, have my men arrange for these two to be strangled at dawn." Yuanye's icy decree cut through the air, and the assembled demon clan prodigies bowed as one, silently accepting his command. No sooner had they done so than a new surge of energy rippled across the human-demon arena. Having just felled the original guardian demon of the first ring, Ye Cheng now stood alone at its heart. In that instant, a dazzling shaft of Taoic light erupted around him, coiling like a 100-foot dragon thrusting into the sky and casting its brilliance in all four directions. Silver-tinged mists swirled about the radiant pillar, like spreading outward in gentle, wave-like ripples. Within that divine glow, a figure took shape, Ye Cheng's silhouette, his features blurred, as if conjured entirely from the force he had just unleashed. A low, resonant hum filled the arena as this projection solidified, a living testament to his strength in the ring. Watching from the sidelines, both human cultivators and demon warriors felt their emotions churn, envy, admiration, dread, even outright loathing at the sight of such pure, unadulterated Taoic power on display. 100-foot pillar of divine light quivered for a moment, then surged toward Ye Cheng like a swallow returning to its nest. "Could this be the human-demon stage, the reward for making the list?" he whispered, excitement shining in his eyes. He took a step forward, meeting the radiance head-on. The human-demon stage was a boon born at the crossroads of the human and demon realms, the two great paths of heaven. Every cultivator who made the list received a celestial reward suited to their race. The higher the ranking, the richer the gift. He recalled a human prodigy who, ranked in the 90s, had received the imperial law inheritance. Now that he stood at number 1, what treasure would the Tao grant him? Heart-pounding, Ye Cheng narrowed his eyes in eager anticipation. Then, with a deep breath, he opened his sea of consciousness and drew in the divine light. In an instant, a low, resonant chime sounded in Ye Cheng's mind, deep and sonorous, like a colossal Taoist bell tolling through the void. From that bell's echo sprang an immense, ancient aura, the primordial wisdom of Taoist scriptures, born at the world's dawn, now unfurling within his consciousness. Bit by bit, those ineffable symbols wove themselves into a vast, living scroll. On the scroll stretched endless mountain ranges and winding rivers, teeming with bizarre spirits of every shape. Dark altars stood concealed among the peaks, where forgotten rites and human sacrifices had once been offered. At the very center of the panorama soared a legendary tripod, 3 mighty legs rooted in arcane power, its bowl suspended above, suppressing the surrounding land and creatures beneath its divine weight. As the painted scene solidified in his mind, a torrent of radiant energy poured in, and the bell's resonance trembled in harmony. In that instant, Ye Cheng grasped the scroll's true purpose, and his heart leapt with uncontainable joy. This was no ordinary gift. Such a reward, he breathed, eyes shining with awe and delight. It's beyond magnificent. Chapter 183. The reward heaven granted to Ye Cheng for being the first to break through to the human demon stage wasn't a fearsome martial art or a legendary killing technique. In fact, it was something far more profound, a supreme treasure of luck known as the heavenly luck chart. Luck, by nature, is a capricious force. Even those born with extraordinary fortune, able to turn calamity into blessing, cannot direct it. Fate is woven by the heavens, beyond the reach of mere practice or hard-earned skill, and it can just as easily ebb away under the right or wrong circumstances. But the heavenly luck chart operates on an entirely different level. Once Ye Cheng cultivates it, the tome will transform his innate fortune into a living chart, one that stands between heaven and earth to stabilize and preserve his luck. Whatever calamity he might face, his fortune cannot be diminished. More than that, the chart forges a bond between his personal luck and the prosperity of his clan, the strength of his Taoist lineage, and the loyalty of his followers. As his family flourishes, his tradition grows more potent, and his vassals swear ever deeper fealty. Ye Cheng's own fortune will rise in kind, without limit. To receive such a treasure at the moment of his greatest triumph was a rare honor indeed. As the sacred aura of the heavenly luck chart settled upon him, Ye Cheng felt a surge of confidence. His path forward, once fraught with uncertainty, now seemed guided by destiny itself, an unbreakable bond between his fate and the world he would shape. Ye Cheng felt a deep, resonant voice echo inside his mind. This heavenly fate atlas is entrusted with the future of all humankind. Your fortune is bound to humanity's. On this ancient battlefield, every demon you slay and every alien race you destroy brings down the blessings of heaven and earth, and in turn, strengthens your own luck. A solid, three-dimensional image sprung to life in his sea of consciousness. Ye Cheng exhaled a breath that he barely noticed he'd been holding, his pounding heart settling at last. He closed his eyes and let the atlas's power flow through him. He didn't need to puzzle over elaborate runes or complex principles. This supreme treasure technique was a direct gift from heaven itself. Ever since he absorbed that brilliant Taoist light into his mind, the heavenly fate atlas had lain ready, refined to near perfection. Now, with a single thought, he set it in motion. Boom! The void trembled around him. A low, humming thunder rolled through the air, an echo only Ye Cheng could sense. Then, as if woven from starlight and probability, a unique map of destiny materialized above his head, its lines shifting and glowing in response to his soul. The heavenly fate atlas had awakened. From this moment on, every demon he felled, every alien he vanquished, would weave fresh threads of divine blessing into the tapestry of his fate and the fate of all humanity. The immense scroll, nearly 1,000 feet in length, slowly unfurled to reveal boundless mountain ranges and winding rivers. Silhouettes of Zhonglin City, the shifting dunes of Wangguihai, the soaring halls of Xuanhuang Palace, the might of the Shenmeng dynasty, and the spire of the Tianshu Pavilion all emerged in exquisite detail. Every force under Ye Cheng's command was charted upon it. Hovering still more distant from the central cauldron were the myriad beings who worshipped its fate-bound power. Thunderbody prodigies, youths anointed by flame spirits, even those whispered to be reincarnations of true immortals. Their forms hovered at the margins of the scroll, ethereal and half-seen. As the final lines of ink solidified, a resonant boom shook the air. The map of destiny had completed its manifestation. Across the boundary between the mortal and demon realms, countless cultivators gazed upward in awed silence. From Ye Cheng's body burst an otherworldly aura, suffusing him with divine radiance and wreathed in shifting mist. In that moment, he no longer seemed a mere man, but a god whose features were veiled from mortal eyes, transcending the very world in which he stood. Ye Cheng stood alone at the center of the human-demon arena, perfectly in tune with heaven and earth. His very presence harmonized with the Tao, and no one dared oppose him, not even the towering supreme giants of the venerable realm. They felt the overwhelming pressure of the world's primal currents bearing down on them, and their hearts trembled in awe. "Just how advanced is this young prince's cultivation?" they whispered among themselves. Before anyone could fully grasp the moment, a colossal surge of energy erupted from the heart of the ancient battlefield. In the blink of an eye, a shockwave swept across the plains before Longyuan Mountain, unsteadying every cultivator in its path and sending many sprawling to the earth. "What in the world is happening?" voices cried out in alarm. All eyes turned to the disturbance's origin, where a dark purple beam of light shot skyward like a twisted spear. Its surface writhed with ominous runes, and the sky demon's aura spilled from the column in waves of malevolence. The air itself seemed to quiver, as if warning everyone present of the dreadful power now awakening below. A towering column of light suddenly burst from the forbidden formation at the far end of the ancient battlefield, the very formation that had been sealing the Sky Demon clan's teleportation vortex. Its barriers were cracking, and waves of Sky Demons began pouring back into the ruins. An elder in the venerable realm sensed the truth of it at once. His eyes darkened with alarm. Without waiting to explain to Ye Cheng, he swept his hand through the air, unleashing a gentle yet impenetrable spiritual shield that enveloped his disciples and clansmen. Then, his voice ringing out with authority, he commanded, "Fall back at once. Do not press further into the battlefield. It only grows more dangerous the deeper you go. Even an Emperor Realm cultivator could be struck down there, let alone us, the Venerables." At the same moment, the other Venerable Masters scattered around the battlefield sprang into action. Each of them erected protective wards and bellowed urgent warnings to their younger followers. No more reckless forays into the depths. The war zone beyond the sealed vortex had become a death trap, and not a single master present would allow another disciple to be lost. The Yuhang Imperial Palace was no exception to the upheaval. For their safety, the court had dispatched several veteran saint emperors to escort geniuses like Sheng Jiling and Nalan Qingyuan away from the front lines and into the relative security of the ancient battlefield's outskirts. Rumor had it only those whose power surpassed the Emperor realm would be allowed to fight in the next engagement. "Are even stronger demons coming?" Sheng Jiling asked anxiously, watching the horizon. Ye Cheng, standing nearby, felt the distant snap of the forbidden formation reaching its breaking point. A spark of excitement lit his eyes. This is a once-in-a-lifetime chance," he whispered to himself. He had only just completed his cultivation of the Heavenly Destiny Atlas, and now a demon had torn through the formation right at his doorstep, enriching his fortune. He turned sharply to Rushuang. "Rushuang, take Yunxi and the others and withdraw at once. Under no circumstances come any closer." Heeding the instruction they'd all received from the Venerable Masters, they knew Yunxi and the others were far below the threshold required for this next battle. If they pressed forward, they'd only get in the way, and Ye Cheng had no intention of being distracted now. Ye Cheng's stomach nodded at his father's words, but a tug on his sleeve from his sister reminded him how dire the situation was. He forced himself to stand tall. "Don't worry, father. My sister and I will obey." Jian Rushuang bowed deeply. "Your Highness, rest assured, while I draw breath, not a hair on the young masters' heads will be harmed." "Very well. Thank you for your loyalty." With that, Ye Cheng gave a curt nod and sprang away, his figure blurring as he raced toward the pulsing pillar of dark purple light that stabbed into the ancient battlefield below. "What? That mysterious swordsman, he's plunged into the depths as well?" someone murmured in astonishment. Beneath the shadow of Longyuan Mountain, the gathered elite, proud cultivators and honored guests alike, stood frozen. They had all assumed Ye Cheng would fall back to the battlefield's fringes, giving them another chance to approach him, perhaps even forge a tenuous friendship. To see him boldly charge into the very heart of danger left them too stunned for words. "That Taoist swordsman is the true hero our generation has been waiting for." A chorus of admiration rose from the young talents gathered there. Word of his deeds had spread like wildfire. Disciples and royal princes alike, from the heaven-guarding sect to the Yuhang Imperial Palace and the Beiming Sword sect, were all moved by the feats of Ye Cheng, the mysterious swordsman. His reputation had reached legendary heights overnight. Sheng Jiling could hardly contain herself. Her eyes glittered as if filled with stars. Had Nalan Qingyuan not gripped her arm, she would have leapt straight into the ancient battlefield to fight demons at Ye Cheng's side. Jiling, calm down. Nalan Qingyuan chided softly but firmly. You're only going to get in his way. He needs to move swiftly, and alone. Even as he held her back, Nalan Qingyuan found his own gaze fixed on the distant horizon where Ye Cheng had disappeared. A sudden, powerful urge welled up inside him, a desire to rush in and stand beside that unknown swordsman. But Qingyuan recognized that this stirring in his chest was nothing like the starry-eyed awe driving Jiling. It was something deeper, something purer. Chapter 184. Nalan Qingyuan's eyes widened in alarm. What's happening? There was no time to linger on confusion. She seized Sheng Jiling's hand and, alongside the elders of Yuheng Imperial Palace, raced for the safety of the battlefield's outer edge. Deep within the ancient battlefield itself, the final seals shattered. With earth-rending force, tens of thousands of transformed demons poured out. Each of these fiends radiated strength beyond the Emperor realm, their powers eclipsing anything the human cultivators had faced before. These legions of transformed demons advanced in tightly organized cohorts, but their true cruelty lay in their vanguard. Every demon squad was flanked by thousands of lesser, untransformed demons whose sole purpose was to strike first, depleting human opponents' spiritual reserves. As soon as a cultivator's energy neared exhaustion, the towering, metamorphosed demons swept in to deliver the killing blow. Cannon blasts of mystic energy and roars of battle echoed across the desolate plain. Cultivators who had once fought valiantly underestimating the enemy now found themselves besieged by a relentless two-tiered assault. At the fringes of the breach, Nalan Qingyuan led her small group to safety, her heart pounding. But she knew this was only the beginning. The demons had broken free, and the ancient battlefield was about to consume them all. Ye Cheng stood at the edge of the ruined field, his chest heaving as he watched the demonic horde advance. No human squad, much less an ordinary Emperor-ranked team, could have repelled such an onslaught. Even units led by God-Emperors had fared miserably whenever the shape-shifting demons struck. Statistically, only 1 in 10 human teams ever won these encounters, and more than 70% of the survivors were God-Emperors themselves, retreating in defeat. Countless giants who led those doomed battalions lay dead now, their forces shattered by the fiend's sudden transformations. Before them lay an ancient spirit pond, its surface roiling with black energy that jutted skyward like 1,000 twisting fingers. Centuries ago, this was where hordes of demons had fallen in a climactic war, their dying auras coalescing into a wellspring of raw power. Today, that same power fueled a perfect ambush. No sooner had Ye Cheng's team stepped within sensing range than dozens of demons materialized from the mist, sealing off every route of retreat. "Damn it, go!" Ye Cheng bellowed, rallying his closest allies. He slammed his blade into the ground, unleashing a shockwave that threw back the nearest attackers. "I'll hold them here. You get to the others." A young captain by his side swallowed hard. These demons, they're too strong. Without at least one Saint Emperor-tier giant fighting with us, we can't keep them at bay. "Then make it count," Ye Cheng retorted, voice grim but steady. "Now move. Go." As his comrades scrambled away, 3 hulking demons of the Xuanwang realm strode into the clearing, their eyes glowing with predatory hunger. Ye Cheng squared his shoulders, raised his sword, and met them head-on. The ambush had been sprung, but he would not let it end here. Not if he could help it. 2 shape-shifting demons emerged at the head of the assault, their auras so fierce they matched the greatest Tianhuang stage cultivators among humans. Normally, even a high-level shapeshifter couldn't stand against a God-Emperor, but these 2 were exceptional. Together, they could challenge a human Saint Emperor. Human formations crumpled under the demon's onslaught. 2 squads of elite fighters found themselves completely surrounded. At the forefront stood their captains, both God-Emperors, who glanced at one another with grim resolve. They would make their stand here, even if it meant giving their lives, so that every last soldier could break free. "God-Emperor," cried more than a dozen junior emperors, tears welling in their eyes. They wanted to rush to their leader's side, But the two captains had already begun to ignite their spiritual power. There was no room for sentiment now. Hesitating would only cost more lives. Just as they braced themselves to unleash a death-defying counterstrike and punch a hole through the siege, something unexpected happened. Inside the ranks, one of the normally aloof Tianhuangs suddenly brightened, his gaze fixed on the northeastern sky. He pointed, voice trembling with excitement. "Look!" Everyone followed his gesture. A collective gasp rippled through the formation. That's our champion from the human realm, the unknown swordsman. He's come to our rescue. What? The unknown swordsman is here? At this exclamation, the other Tianhuang, who had been on the brink of despair, lifted their heads. Even the two god emperors, who had been burning through their spiritual power in a desperate all-out clash, paused mid-spell, forgetting to sustain their aura flames. They exchanged stunned glances. The unknown swordsman of the human race? One emperor murmured, "The peerless prodigy?" As word of his arrival spread, hope flashed through the human ranks like wildfire. Morale soared at once. But the transformed demons leading the enemy vanguard went deathly pale. They remembered all too well the day they'd marched under 6th Prince Yuanye and watched this very swordsman, Ye Cheng, slash through wave after wave of foes on the human-demon platforms. Not even the first demon had stood against the sheer power of his blade. Now, facing him again, none dared to meet his gaze. Ye Cheng's killing aura was so overwhelming it rivaled that of a saint queen, or perhaps even something greater. The mere thought of facing him was enough to drive fear into the hearts of the strongest demons. Fall back now! At that command, the two Emperor Realm transformed demons in the vanguard didn't hesitate. With a terrified shriek, their forms dissolved into twin pitches black mists, and they bolted away at impossible speed. Behind them, 3 other Emperor Realm demons, who had been debating whether to stay and observe, lost all courage. They turned on their heels and sped off in hot pursuit. "Wait, shouldn't we at least see what's going on?" One of the trailing demons protested, unwilling to abandon the riches he expected to claim. "Are you insane?" snapped one of the lead demons without even glancing back. "You want to observe? If that human monster shows up, he'll kill us in the blink of an eye." With that, the two headers accelerated once more, vanishing beyond the horizon in an instant. Their flight triggered a panic that rippled through the ranks. Without their high-level escorts, the thousands of ordinary heavenly demons were like grains of sand before a raging tide. Within seconds, they too were overwhelmed, crushed and scattered by Ye Cheng's unstoppable onslaught. By the time the last mundane heavenly demon lay dead at their feet, the two divine emperors, exhausted, their spiritual power spent, could only stare in stunned relief. Sweat beaded on their brows as they exchanged awed glances. Emperor Liang was the first to speak. "That nameless swordsman, he must be the greatest prodigy in all the 3,000 realms. They say a man's renown is like a living shadow, yet he never unsheathed his blade, and still those demons fled in terror." Emperor Wei nodded fervently. "Exactly. We owe him our lives. Had he not arrived, we'd all be corpses by now." But as Wei glanced around at the ruined battlefield, a question tugged at him. "Wait, why haven't we seen him? We've slaughtered every single demon here. Where is this swordsman supposed to be?" Their gazes settled on Emperor Zhao, the one who first shouted that Ye Cheng had arrived. Caught off guard, Zhou shifted uncomfortably, running a hand through his hair. Well," he stammered, "I may have panicked back there. In the heat of battle, I just blurted out a name to scare the demons away." A heavy silence fell. Then Emperor Liang let out a long, incredulous laugh. "You made him up?" Zhou's face went crimson. I thought it might buy us time." Emperor Wei shook his head, smiling wryly. "You did buy time, all right, but next time, let's rely on real reinforcements." The other emperors erupted in relieved laughter. The so-called mysterious swordsman had been nothing more than a bluff, but it had been enough to turn the tide. And as the echoes of their amusement faded, the 3 divine emperors set to work tending their wounds and gathering the remnants of their forces, already plotting how and with whom they would face the next threat. Chapter 185. Ye Cheng spread his hands and offered an innocent shrug. "I never expected it to work so well," he admitted, an almost mischievous glint in his eyes. A stunned silence fell over the gathered hosts. At last, the two emperors exchanged glances. One of them cleared his throat. "No matter what methods you used, swordsman," he began, voice low and earnest, "we are indebted to you. Should you ever require our aid, command us, and we will repay this favor." "Indeed," the other emperor agreed, bowing slightly in salute. "Ye Cheng, you have our eternal gratitude." Murmurs of assent rippled through the court. With the debt of honor acknowledged, the awkward tension vanished. Under the emperor's leadership, the entire force began an urgent, orderly withdrawal from the Lington region, determined not to give the transformed demons a second chance to strike. Yet deep within that ancient battlefield, many human detachments remained vulnerable. Over the next few days, reports streamed in of squads trapped in narrow defiles and besieged by fierce demon warbands. Each time a unit faced certain slaughter, they cried out for Ye Cheng. Like a silver blur in the gloom, he would appear, his sword flashing, his aura crackling, and the demons would break and flee. Time and again, his timely interventions rescued seasoned commanders and fledgling recruits alike, turning what should have been massacres into miracles of survival. Everyone's gratitude and reverence for Ye Cheng only grew deeper with each passing day, so deep, in fact, that an incredible change swept over him. "My luck is still rising, and by a huge amount no less." Alone in the shadowed ruins of the ancient battlefield, Ye Cheng paused. Before him hovered the ethereal destiny diagram, where once barely 1,000 spirit phantoms had entwined themselves with his fate. Now the count had swelled to more than 3,000. As those phantoms multiplied, so did his luck attribute, and with that surge, he shot from the early Emperor realm straight into the late Emperor realm, teetering on the very brink of perfection. Ye Cheng frowned in wonder, then quickly traced the source of this windfall. Several miles away, nestled in a remote valley, 3 human warbands huddled together, their faces etched with despair. They had been tracking a solitary, shape-shifting demon for days, only to discover, at the last moment, that the beast had flagged them down like a beacon, broadcasting their approach to every lurking enemy. By the time they realized the trap, the valley had already grown ominously still, the air heavy with unseen threats. It was this surge of life, and the demons drawn to it, that had fed back into Ye Cheng's destiny diagram. His luck had become a rallying call, summoning countless spirits to his cause. And now, as he sensed those gathered phantoms pulsing with energy, he knew the battlefield was about to erupt once more. 3 demon armies had the valley sealed off. Tens of thousands of lesser demons swarmed every path, completely blocking the only exit. Above them hovered more than a dozen transformed demon lords, each radiating an oppressive aura. Even the weakest among them had reached the late Emperor realm, while the 3 strongest boasted true Emperor perfection. Between their combined might and the ranks of ordinary demons below, they could easily rival humanity's giants and even its perfected emperors. From their vantage on swirling clouds overhead, the demon lords looked down upon the beleaguered human forces, murderous intent glittering in their eyes. Within the human encirclement, several divine emperors locked eyes. They tightened their grips on divine weapons, prepared to fight to the death, and die if need be. But before they could charge, a startled shout rang out from the back lines. "Master, look! The situation, it isn't as hopeless as we thought." "Isn't that?" another subordinate gasped. "Could it be the legendary swordsman of our people?" A sudden hush fell over the human ranks. Even the embattled divine emperors paused, turning to see a lone figure descending through the mist on a blade of pure azure light. Clad in simple black robes and exuding an effortless calm, he surveyed the demon horde with cool, unflinching eyes. It was Ye Cheng, the mysterious swordsman whose name had become a beacon of hope on every front of the war. At his approach, the demons recoiled, their formation faltering. In that instant, the tide of desperation began to turn. They all looked up at once, feigning surprise as they cheered and clapped, but their eyes glittered with malice. "You crafty humans," one snarled. "Did you really think you could trick us? No one will come to your aid today. You're trapped, and you'll die right here." A dozen hulking demon warriors floated on the cloud sea above, their faces twisted into cruel grins. At a gesture, they signaled a swarm of lesser imps to surge forward and drain the spiritual energy from the captured humans. "No one can help? Are you that sure?" came a calm, icy voice before the demons could even finish their order. They froze in midair. From the misty clouds, a lone figure descended, footfalls silent on the vapor. In his hand gleamed a spirit sword, its blade humming with an otherworldly light that rippled outward like a tide. The demon commander's laughter died on their lips as they stared in disbelief. The unknown swordsman? Could it really be him? A ripple of panic passed among them as Ye Cheng's cold eyes met theirs, the swordlight dancing across his features. In that instant, every transformed demon knew their mockery had turned to terror. The corrupted demons all froze in terror, their bodies trembling so violently they couldn't even attempt to flee. Desperation and dread twisted their features as they stared at Ye Cheng. Yet, perhaps the greatest astonishment was on the faces of the humans gathered below, among them the great emperor who had first heralded his arrival. Their shock was every bit as profound as that of the demons. This is the nameless swordsman? He's really here? Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the crowd as they exchanged stunned glances. It felt unreal. Still, Ye Cheng paid no heed to their astonishment. With barely a whisper of movement, he advanced. In the space of a heartbeat, he closed the distance and stood less than a yard from the cowering fiends. At that moment, the demons understood the full horror of their situation. This was no illusion or hallucination. The nightmare had manifested in flesh and bone. A few weaker creatures tried to turn and run, but their legs shook so violently they nearly gave way, and before they could escape, stronger comrades seized them, forcing them to face the inexorable figure of the nameless swordsman. No retreat. Fleeing means certain death. We'll fight to the last breath. At his companion's shout, the transformed demons snapped to attention. A bloodlust flickered in their eyes. More than a dozen of them had united, enough raw power to give even the Saint Emperor pause. Now it was a true battle to the death. But before they could strike, Ye Cheng lifted a single hand and slowly spread his fingers. A blade of pure light sprang into being, flashing through the air with fatal precision, but without a hint of flashy grandeur. In one effortless arc, that sword light cut through all more than 10 demons standing before him. Silence fell. Below in the valley, every one of the human powerhouses gaped in stunned disbelief. Even the Saint Emperor, they whispered among themselves, would have been hard-pressed to survive such a simultaneous onslaught. Yet here Ye Cheng stood, his spirit sword sheathed as if he'd only just begun. When their shock finally gave way to awe, the gathered experts bowed their heads in profound respect. Ye Cheng had turned a seemingly hopeless clash into his own triumph with nothing more than a casual sweep of his blade. No wonder those demons tremble at the mention of this mysterious swordsman among our ranks, one veteran general exclaimed. With power like his, even the Saint Sovereign Woe old pale in comparison. Cheers erupted from the gathered champions of the human race. They patted Ye Cheng on the back, clapped his shoulder in gratitude, and praised him heartily. Your Highness, your arrival is truly a blessing to us all across the 3,000 realms. Below them, in the valley's broad clearing, the assembled god emperors and other high cultivators bowed in unison to Ye Cheng. As they knelt, a soft glow rose from the very spot where more than a dozen transformed demons had fallen beneath his blade. Threads of residual luck wove themselves together, shimmering like a ribbon of starlight, then streamed upward into the heavenly destiny atlas that hovered above Ye Cheng's head. In that instant, he understood why the atlas's fortunes had grown so markedly over the past few days. The latent energy of every demon he'd slain had been absorbed into his fate chart, strengthening his destiny's power. Ye Cheng brushed a hand across his sword hilt, a slow smile spreading across his face. So that's it, he murmured, softly amused by his quiet good fortune. The hall echoed with renewed cheers, for with Ye Cheng standing among them, the human race had never felt more certain of victory. Ye Cheng was caught completely off guard. He never expected that his performance in the human-demon arena would so dramatically elevate his standing among the heavenly demon clan, or that it would even bring him extra fortune. It was an unexpected but very welcome surprise. Before he could collect his thoughts, streaks of light tore across the distant sky. The expressions on the faces of the human race's masters turned grave as they hovered in place. One of them barked, Saint Emperor Lan Ke and the other senior emperors have issued orders. In the depths of the ancient battlefield, every master of the human race, from Saint Emperors to God Emperors and Celestial Emperors, must assemble before Falling Dragon Valley, set up a battle formation, and be ready to confront the enemy. He raised a finger to stress the next command. Do not break into smaller teams to act independently. Understood? At once, more human race masters descended into the valley, their numbers swelling as they prepared to move on Falling Dragon Valley. But just as the leaders opened their mouths to issue further instructions, all conversation abruptly died. Every eye swung upward to the clouds. There, standing alone, was the mysterious unknown swordsman, watching them. The assembled emperors froze, their eyes widening in a mixture of shock and awe as they took in the lone swordsman before them. One of them stuttered, You're the human demon arena's #1 sword cultivator." Ye Cheng allowed himself a faint, confident smile and inclined his head. That would be me. He glanced down at the jade pendants clutched tightly in the emperor's hands. Each bore the twin dragons of Kushuan Daozong, the unmistakable mark of Saint Emperor Lan Ke's clan, confirming their authority. Yet Ye Cheng's smile faded, and his gaze sharpened as he surveyed their tense faces. "Tell me," he said, voice low and steady, "has the battle grown so desperate that even the Divine Emperor must personally marshal the war array?" Chapter 186. Transformed demons are terrifyingly powerful. Under ordinary circumstances, a transformed demon in the Xuanhuang realm rivals the strength of an emperor and can even stand against several emperors at once. The most gifted among them can easily slay a typical human emperor. That is why, in the depths of this ancient battlefield, human emperors must fight in squads. Only those above the Divine Emperor tier can afford to face demons on their own. Yet now, not only are regular emperors forced to cluster into battle formations, even the Divine Emperors have been conscripted into coordinated arrays. Such a deployment speaks volumes. The demons prowling this field have far outstripped the human race's worst fears. Even the mighty Divine Emperors strain under the pressure, teetering on the brink of collapse. Only by fighting as a unified front do they stand the slightest chance of survival. All the human champions present felt a solemn dread settle in their hearts. The situation was more dire than anything they had anticipated. "Your Highness may not realize," Ye Cheng began, his voice low and urgent, as he stepped forward to deliver the warning that none wished to voice. The envoys who bore the news exchanged helpless glances. The leading emperor lowered his voice to a whisper. "Our venerables managed to block the supreme giants from the Saint Emperor realm as they emerged from the transmission vortex, but that isn't the whole story. Below the Saint Emperor tier, countless transformed demons have arisen, many more fearsome than we first realized." He paused, gathering his words. In fact, over 10 of these transformed demons have already broken through into the Divine Emperor realm. A murmur ran through the group. Such beings are counted as a full realm above their own. Transformed demons at the Saint Emperor level already demand the joint efforts of our venerables to hold at bay. Those who have ascended to the Divine Emperor realm wield power on par with true Saint Emperors, far beyond ordinary disciples of that rank. And among those 10+, the lead emperor continued, 3 are prince-rank members of the Heavenly Demon clan, the 1st, 3rd, and 5th princes of this generation. He let the weight of that fact settle before adding, "Within the prince tier of the Heavenly Demon clan, strength varies greatly. The 5th prince, in particular, marks a significant dividing line. 3 of the Demon clan's princes have just broken through into the Divine Emperor realm. Their killing aura now far exceeds that of 6th Prince Yuanye and every other cultivator below that level, even the handful of heavenly demons who had already reached Divine Emperor rank. Their power approaches that of the legendary giants of our human race. The moment these 3 princes set foot on the ancient battlefield, every advantage the humans once held was swept away, and the balance of the war is swinging dangerously back toward the heavenly demons. Each newly ascended demon prince commands his own legion. No matter how mighty our human defenders, no giant, not even one led by a divine emperor, can survive a head-on clash with them. To blunt this demonic onrush, Grand Marshal Lan Keshengguang has ordered all available forces to form a defensive line at the entrance to Luolong Valley, determined to hold the pass at any cost. Ye Cheng stood silently as the latest dispatch was delivered. His gaze drifted toward the distant haze where Luolong Valley lay hidden. There was no fear in his eyes, only a spark of eager anticipation. A demon prince would make his appearance there soon. The man who could slay such an adversary would earn boundless glory and fortune. And Ye Cheng, ever hungry for both, felt his heart quicken at the thought of the challenge to come. Without a moment's hesitation, Ye Cheng rallied his fellow human masters and charged toward Luolong Valley. By now, countless champions of the human race had assembled before the valley's entrance. Divine Emperor Realm Titans stood shoulder to shoulder, and over 30-storied Ain't Emperors, among them the legendary Lan Ke Shengguang, flanked them. Such a lineup ought to have inspired confidence, yet the warriors in formation at the valley's mouth looked anything but assured. It wasn't a lack of courage that weighed them down, but the overwhelming power of their foes. For days they had clashed with the heavenly demon clan's elite just outside Luolong Valley. Even when the human forces maintained perfect formations, they faltered against the tidal wave of heavenly demons and the divine emperor-level reinforcements pouring in. Each engagement cost them dearly. Several god emperors and saint emperors had already fallen to the enemy's fierce counterattacks. Now, as Ye Cheng led fresh reinforcements forward, the grim reality of the battlefield hung heavy in the air. Every warrior knew that turning back was not an option, and that victory or defeat would be decided here amid the valley's looming heights. Ye Cheng stared across the jagged skyline at the smoldering ruins of yesterday's battlefield and felt a cold knot tighten in his chest. They had met the fiercest of the heavenly demon clan's current princes, unannounced reinforcements, and he had rent their formation to pieces with nothing but his raw power. Over half of the 36 god emperors and all 720 heavenly emperors arrayed in that line had fallen. It was only when more than 10 holy emperors, led by Lan Ke, threw themselves into the breach that the survivors managed to limp back to Luolong Valley. After losses like that, who could blame the human army for dragging its heels? Meanwhile, the demon horde spirits swelled day by day. Transformed demons drove wave after wave of assaults against Dragonfall Valley's defenses, never pausing for breath. And with the recent arrival of 6th Prince Xianxia, flanked by the deadliest demons under his banner, their morale has shot to new heights. A booming laugh rang out. "Ha! 6th brother, you're a little late to the party." As Xianxia's crimson standard whipped in the wind, Ye Cheng closed his fingers around his spear. He drew in a steadying breath. The next battle would be the fiercest yet, and he would not be found wanting. "If you don't come, we'll storm Dragonfall Valley by force." The eldest prince of the Sky Demon clan grinned as he greeted Ye Cheng with false cordiality. "Since you've arrived, let's make good use of our time. Send in the lesser beasts to batter down the defenses of Dragonfall Valley. Once the valley's defenders are drained, we'll strike and reclaim this ancient battlefield for the Demon clan." At the prince's confident words, Ye Cheng and the two companions at his side, Yueya and Zime, could only blanch in response. Ye Cheng hesitated for a moment, then leaned close to his brother and whispered, "Don't be so sure of victory. There are still powerful warriors among the humans." Indeed, the prince's sudden onslaught had caught everyone off guard. No one had expected the humans' forbidden formation to fracture so dramatically, opening a gap large enough for an invasion force. Seizing this rare opportunity, Mozu and the other high elders of the Sky Demon clan had ordered an all-out assault, determined to settle the score once and for all. They saw this opening as their chance to seize the ancient battlefield in one decisive stroke. Once the transmission vortex fell into their hands, the Sky Demon clan would command it unopposed, looking down from on high as they once had in the old days, and unleashing legions of sky demons to invade the southern Xuan divine continent again. The clan's senior officials could barely contain their urgency. There wasn't even time to greet Ye Cheng and the others, who had arrived ahead of them. No sooner had they stepped out of the passage than they struck, hunting down every human expedition they encountered. This was the first real clash between the two sides, so there was no parley, only battle. At the sound of the eldest prince's contempt for humanity, Ye Cheng clenched his fists, ready to speak up. But the prince sneered before he could get a word out. What drivel, sixth brother? Strong warriors among the humans? You've lost your senses. Without the home field advantage, the sealed passes bar our way. Even the demon ancestors cannot cross here. Were they to appear, we'd conquer not just this ancient battlefield, but the entire 3,000 realms. Mankind is nothing but ants. Before the eldest demon prince could finish his taunt, a cry rang out from the ridge above Dragonfall Valley. Look, the nameless swordsman is here! A roar of excitement exploded from the valley's depths. Amid the demon's stunned silence, a solitary figure plummeted from the clouds, descending like a living thunderbolt. Ye Cheng landed at the very heart of the gorge, his black cloak snapping in the wind. The eldest prince and his newly arrived reinforcements froze. "Who is this mortal?" one demon whispered. "How does his arrival radiate such overwhelming power?" The prince lifted a gauntleted hand, ready to command his warriors to test this unexpected challenger. But before the order could leave his lips, the frontline demons, men and women who had already felt the edge of Ye Cheng's blade, fell silent in recognition. They knew exactly who had come to meet them in battle. Everyone froze in terror, abandoning even their assault on the formation. The rank-and-file demons turned tail and fled in panic back toward the demon clan's camp. Great Prince and the other God Emperor realm giants watched in stunned silence, their faces draining of color. They had laughed at humanity, mocked Xianxia, calling all humans nothing but ants. Yet now a single human prodigy had routed their advance guard without even breaking a sweat. Their humiliation was complete. "A band of pathetic cowards," Great Prince snarled, his voice echoing across the field. In an instant, his already towering form swelled, growing from 2 feet taller to an awe-inspiring 10 feet. He loomed over the battlefield like a living 9-story pagoda. With a roar, he charged straight at Ye Cheng. As he thundered by, Great Prince reached out and crushed several fleeing demon lieutenants underfoot. Their screams cut off abruptly, crimson blood spraying into the air. Then, undeterred, he bore down on Ye Cheng, his eyes blazing with wrath. The eldest prince's roar split the sky, his divine emperor-level aura rolling outward like a storm, sweeping across every inch of Luolong Valley and seizing the attention of all who watched. "Ants of the human race, come and die for me!" From the valley floor below, Ye Cheng tilted his head, a faint, amused smile playing on his lips. "Ants of the celestial race?" he called back. "Do the demons still have the nerve to mouth off at us now?" The eldest prince faltered, uncertainty flashing across his features at Ye Cheng's retort. Behind him, Xianxia and the other demon warriors, who knew exactly what Ye Cheng could do, exchanged alarmed glances. Xianxia lunged forward, his voice urgent. "Brother, fall back! You can't handle him alone!" A cruel sneer tugged at the eldest prince's mouth. "Pathetic," he spat. "He's only a human." Beside him, the third and fifth princes bristled. A mere human, at best capable of ranking in the lower tiers of the human-demon platform, perhaps 30th to 50th place, could barely scratch the threshold of the divine emperor realm. Hardly a threat worth fearing. The demons had always towered over humanity in strength, their contempt for mortals etched into their very bones. Why then should they tremble before him? Respect him? Xianxia found himself at a loss for words, silenced by their scorn. Across the clearing, Ye Cheng's figure appeared before the eldest prince. The prince regarded him coolly, a mocking smile curving his lips. "I must admit," he drawled, "you show extraordinary bravery. I only hope you can sustain it in your next life." With a casual flick of his wrist, the prince unleashed a blade of shadowy steel that hissed through the air toward Ye Cheng. Chapter 187. Puff! Bloody petals blossomed across the sea of clouds. Under the stunned gazes of all who watched, Ye Cheng's sword sliced through the Sky Demon clan's eldest prince, once so proud of his power and ferocity, and cleaved off his head in a single stroke. The prince's lifeless body collapsed onto the clouds. "Dead! He's dead!" someone stammered. "The eldest prince, slain by a mere human?" Another voice shook. "Impossible! This can't be real!" Every transformed Sky Demon froze, pupils shrinking as they stared in horror at the fallen prince. Even the third and fifth princes, who had so recently been arguing with Xianxia, gaped in disbelief. By any reckoning, especially by human standards. The eldest prince had already reached the pinnacle of the divine emperor realm. Yet here he lay, undone by one swift strike from a man. Ye Cheng's killing power was beyond terrifying, so immense that even the Saint Emperor realm giants, humankind's peak warriors, were utterly outmatched. These were fighters strong enough to withstand all but the supreme colossi of the venerable realm, yet before him they fell like mere chickens, slaughtered in an instant. Fools, complete fools. Prince Xianxia stared in horror at his shattered ranks. With the great prince dead, his army's morale had plummeted from the heavens to the abyss. He ground his teeth in frustration. How many times had he warned them? How often had he pleaded for caution, asked them at least to pause and listen before charging into battle? But no, now they'd paid the price. Helplessness turned his throat to stone. His third and fifth brothers were paralyzed with fear, unable to give a single order. With nothing left to do, Xianxia raised his hand and called for a retreat. Fall back, regroup, and establish camp. As the Sky Demon clan pulled back, he felt the crushing weight of defeat settle over him. He could understand the first prince's decision. After all, the Sky Demon clan had always regarded itself as invincible. Humans were, to them, no more than ants. The ancient war was still shrouded in secrecy. The clan's top leaders hoarded every detail, leaving the younger generation in the dark. Daily skirmishes against humanity only deepened their contempt. Even he had fallen prey to it. Had he not witnessed Ye Cheng's single, blinding sword strike shatter the thousand-eyed spirit ancestor's projection on the human demon stage, he never would have believed a human could produce such a genius. At last, he thought, perhaps everyone would learn to take the human race seriously. But Xianxia and the others could not shake their sorrow. To sacrifice the first prince, the very boy destined to become an emperor demon, as proof of human might, was a price far too steep. Just as the demons began to falter and their formations crumbled, a roar of triumph swept through Luolong Valley. Ye Cheng had just struck down the eldest demon prince, severing his head in a single, masterful stroke. The human ranks erupted in cheers, every warrior's gaze turning skyward to honor the young swordsman. With Ye Cheng's dramatic arrival on the battlefield, the long-standing balance of this ancient war shifted irrevocably in humanity's favor. Charging into the fray with unshakable resolve, Ye Cheng cut through the demon forces below the venerable realm like a blade through silk. Even a dozen transformed demons of the divine emperor realm, those rare, mighty fiends, found themselves unable to stand before him. Panic seized them. Some fled screaming, while a handful who hesitated paid the ultimate price. In relentless pursuit, Ye Cheng hunted them down one by one, their shattered essences absorbed into his destiny map, a chilling testament to his surging fortune. From the edges of the battle, the demon giants, locked in deadly combat against the human supreme giants who surpassed the venerable threshold, watched in stunned silence. They had seen their younger kin fall in droves, yet now, faced with this sudden reversal, even their colossal strength could not stem the tide. Though their hearts ed with regret at letting such a precious opportunity slip away, the battlefield's momentum had already turned, and control was no longer theirs to claim. Although our forbidden formation has been compromised, we can't keep calling on the demon ancestors to join the ancient battlefield forever. After all, their numbers are limited, while the human race can draw upon venerables from 3,000 realms who stream in without end. Mozu's eyes turned frigid as he stared toward Falling Dragon Valley, the human stronghold that now served as the command center for their royal-level masters. A barely contained fury and murderous hatred glinted in his gaze. "Have we learned anything more about that mysterious human swordsman?" he demanded. The demon lieutenant before him trembled as he crouched. A reply to Master Mozu, "Not yet. He's far too powerful. We can't track him. His origins remain unknown. None of the human dignitaries seem to recognize him or claim knowledge of his identity." Mozu's jaw clenched, the cold edge in his voice sharpening almost to a hiss. The trembling demon swallowed hard, bracing himself, as Mozu's aura of wrath pressed down like a mountain. Ye Cheng exhaled sharply, forcing down the anger and murderous intent coiling in his chest. He fixed the trembling demon with a look of pure disgust. "Get out of my sight, you worthless creature. Go scout again. No, better yet, take your subordinates and stay where you are. Don't you dare show your faces outside. Yes, yes, master. The demon bowed deeply, relief flooding its features as it rushed away. The demon elders standing nearby exchanged glances colder than ice. Though the battlefield still roared around them, they all knew the fight was already lost. And it wasn't a human grandmaster who'd broken their lines, but a damned unknown swordsman. He'd cut down 7 of their God-Emperor-rank giants in swift succession, giants who should have tipped the scales in the demon's favor. If not for that mysterious swordsman, they would have overwhelmed the human defenses long ago. Emperor-rank demons might have ripped open the teleportation vortex at the edge of the ancient battlefield, exploited that breach, and shattered the entire ceiling formation, allowing the mighty demon emperors to pour back into this world. Once they returned, even the combined might of the human emperors would have barely held them off. The heavenly demon giants and emperors would have been free to ravage the 3,000 realms at will. All of that, however, collapsed beneath Ye Cheng's blade like a soap bubble. The very army of emperor-rank demons that had threatened to break through the defensive line was beaten back, step by step. Now, only a scattered few of those towering fiends remain, and even they have no choice but to retreat. Should they stand and fight, Xianxia and the other demon emperors will be utterly annihilated by Ye Cheng and the human forces, and the forbidden formation at the heart of the ancient battlefield will be fully restored. The venerable elders of the heavenly demon clan found themselves utterly cornered. No matter how fiercely they fought, they could not break free from the crushing might of humanity's giants on this battlefield. All they had hoped for was to unmask the identity of the mysterious human swordsman and launch a precise assassination. But their efforts came to nothing. Damnation! They roared in frustration. Mozu lifted his gaze to the heavens and let out a long, weary sigh. There was nothing left to do but order a retreat. With heavy hearts, he and his surviving demons withdrew from the ancient battleground. As the last of their colossal forms faded from view, the great column of magical light, once arcing from earth to sky, cracked and snapped, dissipating into the air with a thunderous echo. At that very moment, Ye Cheng, the man whose blade had turned the tide of battle, felt a subtle shift in his breath. Above him, a radiant map of destiny materialized, its lines glowing like starlight. It hovered for a heartbeat, then stretched up, arced into the 9 heavens. From that celestial realm, a dazzling shaft of divine light descended, washing over Ye Cheng in a brilliant cascade. Chapter 188. Is this a blessing from heaven? Ye Cheng's eyes widened as he felt the familiar surge of divine Tao light swirling around him. He had scarcely believed that, after driving back the heavenly demon clan's forces, he would be granted yet another celestial reward. A radiant column descended from the 9 firmaments, engulfing him in its purifying glow, washing away fatigue, tempering his spirit, and refining his very essence. In the distance, a circle of monks watched with mingled envy and reverence. Many had witnessed, or at least heard of, Ye Cheng's daring exploits on the battlefield, and none doubted he had earned this honor. Your Highness, you are truly worthy of such grace, they whispered among themselves. 7 days later, above the Black City aboard the warship Tianshu, Ye Cheng stood with his hands clasped behind his back. Before him, Yunxi and his brother shared a reluctant farewell with Jian Rushuang. The deck fell silent, save for hushed words and the soft lapping of dark waters against the hull, each man's heart heavy with the weight of parting promises and unspoken hopes. Jian Rushuang stood rooted to the spot, a twinge of regret still tugging at her heart, but she was, after all, the Beiming Emperor's daughter. No matter how much freedom she enjoyed, protocol demanded that she continue her training in the Beiming Emperor sect until she reached the Venerable Realm. Even so, the satisfaction she felt now far outweighed any lingering hesitation. Emerging from the ancient battlefield, she had finally won Ye Cheng's full recognition. She had been named his sword attendant, and, best of all, he had entrusted her with one of his prized sword talismans, its jade-white surface humming with the echo of his sword intent. Clutching that talisman, Jian Rushuang felt her confidence swell. With Ye Cheng's intent guiding her, there could be no obstacle she couldn't overcome. At most a year, no, perhaps only half a year, of focused practice, and she would ascend to the perfect earth sword realm. The very thought sent a surge of determination rushing through her veins. When she finally lifted her eyes, Ye Cheng stood some distance away, wrapped in flowing white robes that restored him to his original, peerlessly elegant form. His features were handsome and composed, every line suffused with quiet power. Jian Rushuang's gaze shone with respect and admiration. In that moment, she made her choice. She would follow him without question, devote every breath to his guidance, and sword in hand, strive to honor the master who had seen her worth. Ye Cheng sat in silent reflection as he retraced his steps back to the sect. Meanwhile, Jian Rushuang was already plotting her next move. Today's return would mark the start of her most intense training yet. She was determined to break through to the venerable realm as soon as possible. Only then could she remain by His Highness's side. No, do more than remain. She could finally aid him in earnest. But Ye Cheng hardly noticed her private ambitions. He glanced at her calmly, recalling their fierce collaboration on the ancient battlefield. In that hellscape of clashing blades and roaring beasts, Jian Rushuang, this small, unassuming girl, had saved his life more than once. Since then, word had spread that she and her companions, Yun Shi and her brother, were somehow linked to his other persona, the legendary unknown swordsman. Many had come calling, hoping to draw secrets from her lips, some wishing only to befriend him, others scheming to curry favor. Ye Cheng knew better than to trust so easily. In the old war, countless human sages, Emperor Chixiao Xuan among them, had risked everything to defend humanity's way, but just as many had betrayed it, siding with demons and guiding them to fresh slaughter. Through it all, Jian Rushuang had stayed silent. No matter how persistent the questioners, she refused to reveal anything. All the while, she guarded Yunxi and her brother with unwavering loyalty. Ye Cheng allowed himself the faintest of smiles. He might be the unknown swordsman to the world, but at least here, among friends and allies, he had no masks to wear. And soon enough, he would repay Jian Rushuang for every debt she had ever incurred on his behalf. Even the other disciples of the Beiming sword sect found their path barred by the girl, blocked entirely at her whim. Ye Cheng recognized her immediately and silently yielded. Yet his focus lay elsewhere, on a treasure surging within his spiritual sea. It was a gilded seal crowned by a sculpted phoenix, wings unfurling, poised to take flight. The bird looked so lifelike that one could almost hear its cry. Divine flames and opulent clouds of spiritual energy coiled around the seal, weaving together into a tangible torrent of fire element light. At a glance, its presence was enough to strike awe into anyone who dared to behold it. This seal had been bestowed upon Ye Cheng by heaven itself, a reward for driving back the demon clan. For days he had labored to refine its power, and only today had he finally mastered it. Given his current strength, and the miraculous boon of the heavenly refining saint body, harnessing even a 6th-level venerable spiritual weapon was well within his grasp. Ye Cheng glanced at the seal before him, the culmination of 7 grueling days and nights of sacrifice. Normally, forging a 7th-level imperial weapon only requires a 1-day preliminary ritual, but this seal, destined to become something far greater, demanded far more. It wasn't until they had boarded the Tianshu Pavilion warship and set course back to the spirit realm that the final syllables of the incantation fell into place and the sacrifice was complete. A quiet satisfaction washed over Ye Cheng. The effort had been more than justified. In raw quality, the seal surpassed 99% of all imperial weapons in existence. It stood merely 1 step shy of the legendary 8th-level Ultimate Saint weapon, granting it the exalted title of a quasi-saint weapon. Even more significant, it was the crown jewel of the Suzaku heavenly sect, a testament to his sect's power and prestige. Yet the seal's true power lay in its versatility. When shaped like a tripod or a great bell, its aura could suppress and bind the most stubborn spirits. Shift it into the form of a blade, whether a slender dagger or a sweeping sword, and its killing potential soared to deadly levels. With this dynamic quasi-saint weapon at his command, Ye Cheng felt an exhilarating surge of confidence. His strength had taken a leap into the realm of legends. Although the Suzaku Heavenly Seal is a sealing magic weapon, I can still weave it into my immortal extermination sword formation, making the formation exponentially deadlier. And beyond this prized seal, my foray into the ancient battlefield yielded yet more treasures. Ye Cheng summoned his storage ring with a thought. In an instant, its lid slid open to reveal perfectly stacked slabs of spirit iron, divine forging material for 6th-grade venerated artifacts. Altogether, there was 10,000 pounds, enough to outfit all 10 great sects with top-tier 6th-grade tools and still have reserves to supply 100 lesser factions. His gaze drifted deeper into the ring, where a lone orb of crimson metal hovered in midair. It was roughly the size of a human head, suspended without any visible support or spiritual aura, yet alive with silent motion. Chaotic light spiraled across its surface, and within that blaze of color intertwined an almost suffocating breath of the Tao, so potent it seemed capable of subduing the world itself. Ye Cheng exhaled slowly. This voyage to the ancient battlefield had more than repaid his efforts. Now that he possessed the Suzaku heavenly seal, mountains of spirit iron, and this mysterious Tao-forged orb, his every step forward would be unstoppable. Ye Cheng's eyes lit up the moment he laid them on the orb before him. Its crimson surface flickered with an inner fire, red spirit gold of the highest order. He knew at once this wasn't mere 6th-grade ore, but a 7th-level imperial materia, the stuff emperors used to forge weapons of legend. Meteorite red gold, he whispered, a 7th-level intermediate imperial material. In the age of the ancient emperors, 10 kilograms was all they needed for a primary imperial weapon. He opened his storage ring. Inside lay the orb, about the size of a human head, yet weighing nearly 100 kilograms. Beside it hovered 2 small capsules, each bathed in soft, divine radiance. They throbbed with boundless vitality and spiritual energy, 7th-level imperial pills. These treasures were the spoils of his expedition to the ancient battlefield. The meteorite red gold came as a reward from the Zhenwu Emperor sect. The 2 miraculous medicines had been bestowed upon Ye Cheng, known across the 3,000 realms as the Nameless Swordsman, by the other supreme emperors. As for the 6th-level divine iron and spirit herbs littering his ring, those were the handful he'd unearthed with his own hands. Holding these prizes, Ye Cheng could hardly contain his excitement. He'd risked everything for this haul, and now, with imperial-grade gold and medicine at his disposal, he truly stood on the threshold of greatness. The rest of the items were gifts from the most powerful leaders of the various Taoist sects, masters who'd gone out of their way to find Ye Cheng after the war. One of them had even joked, "Kid, you really outdid yourself this time." Inside his storage ring sat the ancient spirit reliquary that held Empress Fufeng's sleeping form. As Ye Cheng examined the treasures, a ripple of astonishment pulsed through their shared mental link. He let a small smile play across his lips and replied quietly, "Your Majesty, gather your strength. Once I return from this mission, I'll begin refining the elixir. Admittedly, these herbs are rare, so we may not have quite enough to fully restore your physical body. But I promise you this, the formula will completely renew your soul and spirit. Your essence will never again be at risk of dispersing." Empress Fufeng's heart fluttered at his words. She opened her eyes within the reliquary and regarded him. Even through the dim haze of her slumber, his normally impassive features looked more assured than ever. There was a quiet confidence etched into his handsome face, and for the first time, the centuries-old empress felt something like youthful excitement flare in her gaze. Over countless lifetimes, she had encountered transcendent beings and peerless geniuses across the celestial realm, but Ye Cheng's calm determination stirred an admiration unlike any she'd known before. Even the masters of the upper realm paled before Ye Cheng's prodigious talent and achievements. Empress Fufeng watched him with growing admiration. Perhaps he truly is the fated one of this age, she whispered to herself, her eyes alight with wonder. As Ye Cheng and his companions set out on the journey back to the spirit realm, Nalan Qingyuan arrived once more at her ancestral home on Nelan Peak. She barely had time to relish the spoils of her expedition to the ancient battlefield when a joyous surprise awaited her at the gate. There, stepping toward her on graceful lotus-like feet, was her mother, Nalan Yan, no longer clad in prison garb, but in an elegant palace robe. A serene smile played upon her lips, and her eyes shone with boundless love. "Mother," You're free? Qingyuan's voice trembled. Only their last meeting had brought her mother's hopeful words, that her grandfather had awakened and was nearly restored, that Nalanyan would soon escape her cage. Yet to see her mother truly at liberty, walking toward her in safety, flooded Qingyuan's heart with relief and joy. The long-awaited day had finally come. Qingyuan's heart overflowed with joy, and she flung herself into her mother's arms like a young swallow. "Yuaner, come now," Nalanyan chided with a gentle laugh. "You're already a big girl. No more of this clinginess." Despite her words, she cradled Qingyuan tenderly, her fingers tracing soothing circles on her daughter's back. After a moment, mother and daughter relaxed into each other's embrace, the room settling into a soft, contented quiet. Qingyuan's cheeks bloomed with a rosy flush as she took her mother's hand and led her out to the small courtyard where she usually trained. "Mother," she asked breathlessly, "you've come back, but has grandfather emerged from his retreat? Can we finally set off to find father and my brothers?" Chapter 89. Nalan Qingyuan's voice trembled with excitement. Across from her, Nalanyan's eyes glimmered with anticipation, though she forced herself to shake it off and gave her daughter a wry, half-amused smile. "Your grandfather has emerged from seclusion," she said, "but he's hit a bottleneck in his cultivation. Still, this could be the perfect opportunity." Nalan Qingyuan's heart leapt. "You mean, he's trying to break through to the Dao Zun realm?" Nalanyan nodded. "Exactly. He's risking everything to reach Dao Zun." Nalan Qingyuan's eyes widened. The Nalan clan had been on the decline for years, saved only by the backing of the Yuheng Imperial Palace. Without a Dao Zun cultivator in the family, they were looked down upon by other sects. If grandfather succeeded, it wouldn't just secure our mother and me, it would lift the fortunes of the entire clan. Seeing her daughter light up, Nalanyan couldn't help smiling. She reached out and gently tapped Qingyuan's forehead. "Don't get carried away too quickly. Ascending to Dao Zun is nearly impossible. Even a 30% chance of success is rare. But I admit, I'm praying he makes it." "Even if your grandfather fails this time," Mrs. Gu said reassuringly, "it won't set him back. Every attempt to break into the Dao Zun realm raises his odds. He's already had one shot. He knows what to expect." She smiled, her eyes bright. "After this, his chance of success will be at least 50%. And even if he doesn't make it, he'll slip back only to the peak of St. Zun. That alone is more than enough to solidify our family's position." Ye Cheng drew in a steadying breath, his excitement barely contained. "Mother, what did you gain from the ancient battlefield this time? Show me." Mrs. Gu returned his eager gaze. With practiced care, Ye Cheng laid out 3 small vials. The instant their contents touched the air, a heady, magical fragrance blossomed through the courtyard. Mrs. Gu closed her eyes, drinking in the scent as if it were a life force. She felt her tethered spirit, dormant and weakened these many years, stir and strengthen. Opening her eyes, she whispered, "Is this 1,000-year soul-retaining grass? 6th-tier high-grade spirit medicine?" Nalanyan's eyes lit up as he recognized the rare herb at a glance. Nalan Qingyuan smiled and nodded. "That's exactly right. My daughter traded for 3 of these 1,000-year-old soul retention herbs. One is for mother, to nourish her soul, and the other 2 are for father and my brothers." Her tone was apologetic but proud. Having grown up within the storied Nalan clan, she had never lacked cultivation resources. Though this soul retention herb was a 6th-tier high-grade spirit medicine, she had already gathered and refined more than enough for her own use. But her father and brothers were not so fortunate. Valuable soul medicines like these could greatly boost their spiritual cores and unlock new potential. "And that's not all," she added, slipping her hand into a storage ring. With a flick of her wrist, a cascade of gems, spirit stones, and various battle spoils tumbled out, precious treasures she had claimed on the ancient battlefield. "I've prepared all of these for father and my brothers as well." Nalanyan raised an impressed eyebrow. "You've outdone yourself. They'll be thrilled." Nalan Qingyuan's eyes sparkled with determination. "They deserve every advantage. I just hope I've done enough to help them strengthen their paths." Nalan Qingyuan had traded most of her spoils for a carefully chosen assortment of spiritual medicines and elixirs, gentle yet invaluable to cultivators below the Calamity Realm. But she hadn't forgotten her brother, Ye Cheng. Knowing that, as the son of a lesser clan, he lacked abundant resources and might still only be at the true spirit realm. She had specially gathered a set of warming pills and rare herbs suited precisely for practitioners at or below that level. When Qingyuan laid out her offerings, Sheng Jiling and the Ying siblings stared in astonishment. Even Nalanyan, our mother, felt a surge of pride and tenderness. Without hesitation, she retrieved every tribute she had accumulated over the years as a member of the Nalan family and combined them with Qingyuan's gifts. "Now," Nalanyan said, her voice warm, "we'll simply wait for Grandpa to emerge from his retreat. Even if he can't break into the Daozun realm, Mother and I will go ourselves to bring your father and brother home. Although the clan elders already know that your grandfather's injuries have fully healed, the rest of the Nalan family remains in the dark. We can't truly relax until he emerges from seclusion. Besides, as I said, I don't merely wish to visit my husband and son. I intend to bring them back to the Nalan clan and personally oversee their training. To do that, I absolutely need your grandfather's backing." Nalan Qingyuan's eyes lit up. "Yes," she cried, nodding eagerly. Nalanyan took a deep breath, determined to change the subject. But she couldn't ignore the whispers among the young disciples and elders who had just returned from the ancient battlefield. She leaned forward, curiosity piqued. "By the way, Yuaner, I heard that during the campaign, someone from our human tribe emerged as a mysterious prodigy, achieving feats no one expected. Do you know anything about this?" "A mysterious prodigy?" Qingyuan echoed, tilting her head in wonder. "Is that Prince Ye Cheng?" Nalan Qingyuan froze for a moment before whispering, her eyes wide. Nalanyan simply nodded, unable to hide a flicker of excitement. Qingyuan offered a sly smile, leaned close to her mother, and spoke in a low voice. "Mother, please keep this to yourself. Do you remember the two prodigies I told you about earlier?" "Of course I do," Nalanyan replied. "You said those two children were already at Heavenly Emperor level, maybe even approaching Saint Emperor strength. How could I forget? This time, I encountered them again on the ancient battlefield," Qingyuan continued, her voice barely above a hush. "They've become even more formidable. That younger sister of theirs? She's as powerful as a true Heavenly Emperor." Nalanyan's breath caught in her throat. Before she could fully grasp the twins' astonishing progress, Qingyuan leaned in even closer, her eyes shining with excitement. But they're not the most extraordinary geniuses I met today," she murmured. Nalanyan frowned, puzzled. Qingyuan's next words sent a shock through her. "That prince, Ye Cheng, is far more extraordinary than both siblings combined, and he's their father." Remembering that day on the ancient battlefield, when Ye Cheng cut through hundreds of demons and single-handedly seized the human-demon platform, her heart still fluttered with excitement and awe. Every detail of his exploits was passed on to Nalanyan, how he advanced storm-swift through the ranks, how his blade flashed like lightning, and how no fiend could withstand his onslaught. Nalanyan listened in stunned silence. As the saint of her generation in the Nalan clan, she had fought on the ancient battlefield herself and knew the human-demon platform better than most. In all her years, she had never seen anyone attain such heights so quickly. To reach the top of the human-demon stage, even as the 100th contender, was enough to echo throughout the 3,000 realms south of Shenzhou. Yet here was an unknown swordsman, not only breaching that summit, but claiming first place outright, sweeping across hundreds of battle stages with an almost invincible grace. His achievements lay far beyond her wildest expectations. No imperial heir or celebrated prodigy, no matter how brilliant, could hold a candle to the young man they now called Ye Cheng. His name, once unheard, was destined to be carved into the annals of history. I really can't fathom what kind of elders could have raised such a prodigy. Nalanyan drew in a quiet breath, her thoughts drifting to her son, Ye Cheng, stranded in the spirit realm. A sharp pang of guilt knotted in her chest, and more than anything, she longed to set out at once, to bring both her husband and her boy safely home. "You're close. You must be close." At her mother's soft encouragement, Nalanyan stepped forward, gently clasping her mother's hand. Her eyes glimmered with longing and hope. As they stood there, hearts aching for family they had not seen in ages, a palace servant, driven by idle curiosity, slipped away to spread word of Nalanyan's sudden release from confinement. Before long, the news reached the ears of the current Heavenly Guardian Emperor, setting the court abuzz with questions and intrigue. Prince Ye Cheng stood beneath the towering gate of the Heaven-Guarding sect, one of the great imperial schools in the 3,000 realms, his keen eyes scanning the treasures and trophies brought back from the ancient battlefield. Around him, his disciples bowed in awe. Although their prince had not joined the final climactic clash, his earlier exploits had already won wide acclaim, especially his decisive victory over a transformed prodigy of the Heavenly Demon Clan, achieved by unleashing his trump card at just the right moment. With these achievements, one young follower gushed, "After today, Your Highness will surely be named on the Earth list. The elders in the sect will throw a grand celebration for you." Ye Cheng's lips curved into a modest smile. He shook his head. The Earth list? What real value does that hold? He had persevered in cultivation for over 40 years, and only now, just barely, had he broken into the Earth list and advanced into the Xuanhuang realm. In most other imperial sects, only princes and princesses already at the God King level could claim such an honor. To Ye Cheng, it was a milestone, yes, but one he regarded with neither vanity nor complacency. The true trials still lay ahead. Compared to Jian Rushuang of the Beiming Sword Sect and Jun Wanian of the Kuxuan Dao Sect, both princes in their 20s and 30s, they're hardly worth mentioning. After all, Ye Cheng single-handedly held back the demonic horde on the ancient battlefield. Leaning back on his seat, the Guardian Heaven Sect's prince let a confident smile play at his lips. All this so-called fame surrounding those young nobles is empty talk. If we're discussing the Earth ranking, it's that nameless swordsman who truly deserves our attention. A flicker of admiration shone in his eyes. Who's to say he won't claim first place this time? Given the chance, I'd very much like to meet this mysterious young man. Just then, a subordinate bowed and spoke. "Your Highness, a dispatch has arrived from the Tuoba clan, an intelligence report supposedly sent directly by the Tuoba Emperor." Tuoba? The prince raised an eyebrow in surprise. I was under the impression he wouldn't emerge from seclusion until he reached the Emperor realm, and yet he finds the time to send us reports? It looks like he's bragging again. Ye Cheng, lord of the Heaven-Guarding sect, shook his head with an amused smile. Emperor Tuoba, his childhood friend and a renowned prodigy of their generation, was every bit as talented as Ye Cheng himself. But Tuoba's legendary laziness had left him stuck at the God King realm, much to the despair of his own family's elders. His latest dispatch, as usual, was packed with sensational gossip and no real substance. Out of old habit, Ye Cheng broke the seal and scanned the report. After a moment, he chuckled and shook his head. Same old Tuoba, always stirring things up for a laugh. "Your Highness, what news did the Tuoba Emperor send?" A few senior attendants, drawn by their lord's rueful expression, leaned forward eagerly. They exchanged curious glances, waiting to hear whether this time Tuoba's important intelligence held any real value. Ye Cheng, the son of the Heaven Guardian sect, waved a hand and offered a tranquil smile. "It isn't exactly state secrets," he said, "but word is that the last Saint Yan of the Nalan family, Nalan Yan herself, has finally been released from her confinement in the Yuheng Imperial Palace." At once, the young disciples around him exchanged uneasy glances. One blurted out, then caught himself. "Saint Yan, you mean Nalan Yan? Sect Lord's son, forgive our indiscretion." They bowed hastily, palms pressed together in apology. In the past, Ye Cheng had been quietly devoted to Nalan Yan for years, only to see her fate claimed by some minor noble house. They dared not mention her name unless he spoke of her first. Ye Cheng chuckled softly and waved them off. "No need to fuss. It's been ages, 10 years, maybe more. Time slips by." His tone was light, as if the matter held a weight. Indeed, he had long since moved past old attachments, else he never would have broken through to the Xuanhuang realm so swiftly. And after witnessing the prowess of that unknown swordsman on the ancient battlefield, any last trace of jealousy had completely vanished. In the end, what mattered most was one's cultivation, not the whims of the heart. Ye Cheng had long since married and started a family. His daughter was already well into her cultivation. Worrying over court gossip would have struck him as ridiculous. He paid it no heed, but his wife certainly did. "Oh, So the Nalan family has lifted Nalanyan's confinement? What excuse do they offer? Princess Xianghua's voice was cool as she addressed the maid who had just entered with news. She sat in the side hall of Ye Cheng's palace, every inch the future empress in her golden palace skirt. Though she bore the title of Princess of the Tianzin dynasty, her rank was modest compared to her husband's. Her own talents were unremarkable. She had been chosen by the Heaven Guardian Emperor on a whim, plucked from obscurity simply to fill a bride's slot. Yet over the years, appearances mattered most. To the outside world, their marriage was harmonious, their partnership complete. Beneath that polished surface, however, Princess Xianxia remained ever watchful, determined to protect her own interests and her husband's reputation at any cost. Princess Xianxia couldn't shake the memories of that year. When she heard the cold edge in her palace master's voice, her heart fluttered, but she dared not conceal a thing. She knelt quickly and said, "Your Highness, they say Nalanyan's father has finally healed. He even claims he can challenge a Daozun, so they had no choice but to release you." A challenge a Daozun? Xianghua's eyes flashed with disdain. Born to a minor branch of the Tianzin dynasty, so what? Now, under her husband's illustrious name, even true Daozun powerhouses dared not slight her. She tightened her fist, letting her cultivation flare to life. In an instant, a ripple of force burst from her, a clear sign she'd reached the God King realm, a rank on par with the heirs of the great imperial sects. Still, she bowed her head, keenly aware of her own shortcomings. 30 years of practice, longer than most imperial offspring, yet her mastery remained superficial. Here's a polished rewrite of the passage in idiomatic English, with Ye Cheng as the male lead. Even if she dared to make a move now, any top-tier Tianwang prodigy could easily crush her. But what did that matter? He was a god king, Ye Cheng himself. And Nalanyan, after years of imprisonment, had been reduced to an early-stage Xuanwang. The injustice of it all left Princess Xianxia cold with fury. "Your Highness?" the maid ventured, her voice trembling as she dared to break the heavy silence. She'd just passed the princess's chambers and had overheard a casual remark. I heard you say you no longer care about what happened in the past." Princess Xianghua's lips curved into a serene smile, though a flash of triumph shone in her eyes. "Rest assured, I'm fully aware of everything." It was true that Ye Cheng had once been utterly devoted to Nalanyan. But in the end, who remained by his side? Even if Nalanyan were released tomorrow, what could she accomplish? Ye Cheng would soon break through to the Emperor realm and inherit the Guardian Heaven sect. By then, the princess's own father, now only a saint, would be elevated to Taoist master. When that day came, the entire realm would bow before them as emperor and empress. Still, Princess Xianxia was far from complacent. She had plans of her own, and she would see them through. "I have a task for you." Princess Xianxia looked down at her maid with cool composure. "Go at once and spread 2 announcements." The maid bowed her head, attentive. "First," the princess continued, "proclaim to the court, and let it echo throughout the capital, that Saint Yan has been released from confinement. Make sure everyone hears it." The maid inkly ned her head. "Once that news has taken root," Xianxia added, "announce the second. I entered the realm of the God King 3 months ago." She lifted her chin, fixing the maid with a steady gaze. "Is that clear?" "Perfectly, princess." The maid bowed once more before slipping away to carry out her orders. As she hurried down the corridor, the maid couldn't help feeling a pang of sympathy for Nalanyan, who was about to learn of this scheme. Princess Xianxia would make no public move against her rival, yet these 2 carefully timed rumors would destroy Nalanyan's reputation and leave her utterly helpless. By the time regret dawned, it would serve her no purpose. She had only herself to blame. Chapter 191. As soon as Princess Xianxia issued her decree, word of it spread like wildfire throughout every sect friendly to the Heaven Guardian sect, the Yuheng Emperor sect, and their allies. Whispers and speculations ricocheted among the disciples. Did they really lift the 20-year confinement on Saint Yan of the Nalan clan? If so, that calls for a grand celebration. Celebrate. Don't be so sure. 20 years in seclusion, she must be elderly by now. Even if she's still beautiful, her strength has probably waned. I heard her cultivation dropped all the way back to early Xuanwang. Meanwhile, the other lady. A knowing smirk passed around. Indeed, everyone had heard the latest news. The Heaven Guardian sect's future empress was enjoying unprecedented glory. Wherever she appeared, the sect's towering guardian giants bowed their heads in reverence, standing ready at her side. By comparison, Saint Yan's once legendary reputation seemed a distant memory. Suddenly, a new rumor ignited the crowd. Breaking news! Our little empress has shattered her own limit. Her realm just soared straight into the Divine King stage. What? Seriously? An electric hush fell over the gathering as this astonishing tidbit took hold. Cultivators exchanged stunned glances, realizing that the balance of power might be shifting once more. Princess Chenghua's extraordinary gift was no secret among the allied sects. Though she hailed from the illustrious Tianzun dynasty, she was thought of as little more than a fortunate noble, an honored guest who had come to study under the Wutong branch of the Guardian Heaven sect's prince, not a legendary phoenix reborn. After all, most cultivators spend centuries striving to reach the Emperor realm. Few ever attain it. Yet here was Princess Chonghua, barely into her 30s, already stepping into the Divine King realm. At that age, could she not outshine the princes of every other sect? Shockwaves rippled through the gathering clans, but the real surprise came with the details. The Guardian Heaven sect had stocked her chambers with treasures beyond imagining. Jade Garden, Jade, golden heavenly cicada leaves, the 10,000-year spiritual heart fruit, all to shatter her bottleneck and propel her forward? Whispers spread like wildfire. Those artifacts alone could forge a new saint. News of the sect's lavish support only intensified the awe. Young trainees gaped. Even the venerable masters, who had weathered 100 battles, couldn't help but envy her. They exchanged murmured regrets and reluctant admiration. What a fortune she'd been granted, and what a remarkable breakthrough she was destined to make. Rumor had it that the Heaven Guardian sect's heir once fell hopelessly in love with Saint Yan, but she had turned him down. Had she accepted him, they said, with her innate talent and the sect's training, she'd never be in the predicament she's in now. Who can she blame but herself? They sneered. She's probably kicking herself a dozen times over. But once an opportunity's gone, it's gone for good. No amount of regret will keep her from her miserable fate. Before long, the whispers reached every corner of Nalan Peak. Disciples shot Nalan Yan curious, even pitying looks, but she paid them no heed. She had never wavered in her choice, and idle gossip held no sway over her. Her mind was fixed on far more important matters, the gifts she would offer her husband and the son she'd never seen since his birth, Ye Cheng. Qing Yuan had already arranged a trove of rare spirit stones, refined pills, and cultivation manuals. Yet as a mother, Nalan Yan felt compelled to add something personal, something her boy could treasure for a lifetime. After all, Qing Yuan was right. Out here on Nalan Peak, Ye Cheng probably had little access to high-grade resources. She would make sure he lacked nothing. Even if Ye Cheng truly broke into the true spirit realm, his earlier cultivation hadn't been laid on rock-solid foundations. He'd still need a supply of high-grade spiritual medicines to stabilize and strengthen then his newfound powers. While Nalan Yan busied herself with selecting the perfect gift for Ye Cheng's breakthrough, a far more astonishing report swept across Nanshuan Divine Continent. Like a thunderbolt cracking open a serene sky, it sent shockwaves through every corner of the realm. The scandal gripping Nalan Yan and the Guardian Heaven sect's emperor was instantly forgotten. The reason? A name long whispered in reverent tones, Ying Beido. Once celebrated as one of the continent's brightest prodigies, he had vanished into seclusion 10 years ago. Now, at last, he emerged, having shattered the pinnacle of Heavenly Duke and ascended to the Divine Emperor realm. News outlets gawked. When Ying Beido stepped out of his retreat, the very stars answered his breakthrough. Streams of starlight coalesced overhead, forming 9 gigantic celestial dragons that flanked him like guardian deities. Their combined aura cleaved the clouds and lit the sky. Never has such divine majesty been witnessed in living memory. Divine Emperor? Murmured cultivators in stunned disbelief. It can't be. Yet it's true. Ying Beido has done the impossible. As the continent erupted in awe and speculation, Nalan Yan paused in her preparations, her thoughts momentarily swept away by the grandeur of this unprecedented emergence. Ye Cheng's own breakthrough was significant, but now, in the shadow of a newly crowned divine emperor, even his achievement would seem modest to the wider world. 40 years of cultivation and already a divine emperor? The crowd gasped. Incredible. Truly a prodigy. Xingluo Holy Land has found a treasure in this star divine body. To achieve the rank of divine emperor before 50 is a feat that even veteran Xuan emperors rarely accomplish. It meant that Ye Cheng's potential far outstripped the Xuan emperor tier. He might one day soar into the heavenly emperor realm, or perhaps even the legendary holy emperor realm. Yet as astounding as this news was, it paled beside what came next. Just 2 weeks later, word spread of an even greater marvel. After Ye Cheng emerged from his breakthrough retreat, he had not departed the sacred grounds as expected. Instead, he entered the Enlightenment Tower once more, and remained inside for 49 days of uninterrupted meditation. When he finally stepped out, rumors claimed his divine aura had deepened immeasurably. Many whispered that this second retreat would propel him not just beyond the divine emperor threshold, but toward powers no one in living memory had achieved. In every corner of Xingluo Holy Land, disciples and elders alike trembled at the promise of Ye Cheng's rise, and wondered where his limits truly lay. Chapter 8. Whispers of the Nine Lights. Across the length and breadth of Shenzhou, news spread like wildfire. Ye Cheng had directly comprehended the Xingluo Holy Land's supreme secret technique, the Nine Lights' grand divine power. Worse still, he was already racing north, charged by the Holy Land itself to hunt down and corrupt Saint Emperor who had intercepted and slaughtered his master, Xingluo Zhenchuan. This bloody pursuit was to be his inaugural trial on the path toward the God Emperor realm. The announcement sent shockwaves through every cultivation stronghold. Veterans in the Emperor realm staggered in disbelief. Ambitious young prodigies across the continent gaped in awe. A newly minted God Emperor cultivator daring to chase a Saint Emperor, to leap an entire cultivation boundary and risk everything? Even gifted though Ye Cheng's star god body might be, he was at best an Emperor-tier powerhouse. And between an emperor and a Saint Emperor lay a chasm as vast as that dividing an emperor from a divine king. No matter how formidable his innate magical might, how could he possibly close such a gap? Before doubt could settle into fear, further dispatches arrived, each more startling than the last, igniting Shenzhou's heart with a fever pitch. Extra! Extra! Hear the latest! A herald's trumpet split the morning air across the Cloud Sea capital. Very courtyard and tea house fell silent as a breathless messenger proclaimed the tidings. 3 days ago, the starry divine body, Ye Cheng, appeared at our gates. He challenged the golden-winged Saint Emperor, tyrant of the Cloud Sea for 3,000 years. 700 exchanges they fought, neither yielding. At the climax, Ye Cheng unleashed his Nine Lights' great divine power, wove the Nine Lights killing formation, and slew the Saint Emperor. A stunned hush followed. Then, cheers and exclamations rippled through Nanchuan Shenzhou. For centuries, no one in the divine emperor realm has felled a Saint Emperor. Ye Cheng's ascension to Grandmaster Divine Body, it's unprecedented. In every sect's recruitment hall and tavern market, cultivators debated feverishly. A young King Realm disciple, face flushed with excitement, leaned forward across a low table. I've waited decades for this. Nanchuan Shenzhou is finally seeing a new divine body grandmaster. Another piped up eagerly. I don't care about that. I'm here for the Earth ranking update. With Ye Cheng's record, who else could claim the top spot? Across the square, the messenger's trumpet sounded again, and every pair of eyes turned back to the proclamation stand. The age of Ye Cheng, the starry divine body, had truly dawned. The marketplace buzzed with excitement as young cultivators pressed forward, their eyes alight with ambition. The Earth ranking, the definitive honor roll for prodigies under 100 in all Nanchuan Shenzhou, was being updated, and every aspiring master dreamed of seeing their name on that list. Though few had the power to claim the top spot, that didn't dampen their longing. Those already ranked enjoyed the highest esteem among peers and rivals alike. Even disciples from other sects whispered in awe. Among them, the Xingluo Holy Land students were especially confident. With this Earth-ranking reshuffle, one murmured, Senior Brother Beidou will surely eclipse the Wanzhen Saint Sun and claim first place for real. Exactly, a companion agreed. The Wanzhen Saint Son is talented, but he's only at the Heavenly Emperor realm. Compared to senior brother Beido's prowess, he's leagues behind. Number 1 on the Earth ranking has to be senior brother Beido. Xingluo Holy Land's disciples chimed in with one voice, their excitement barely contained. Pride gleamed in every face, including Ying Beido's. Though he still wore his customary calm expression, the delight shining in his eyes betrayed him. Before they could say another word, a low hum rippled through the sky. From the distant 9-day sea of clouds, a pillar of radiant light shot down over Nanshuan Shenzhou, drawing gasps from cultivators everywhere. Look, that's the Earth rankings signal. Whenever there's a significant shift in the rankings, that light appears. At the sight of the divine column, the disciples, elders, and even the saints of Xingluo Holy Land were seized by a mixture of awe and apprehension. One after another, they poured out of the sanctum, gazing up at the brilliant beam overhead, hearts racing with anticipation. Excellent! This is going to be good, someone cried out, and the gathered crowd's excitement reached a fever pitch. Excellent! It looks like Beido will surely top the Earth list this time. The saint of the Xingluo sanctuary, Ying Beido's direct master, stroked his long beard with evident satisfaction, his eyes alight with pride. The other senior officials standing beside him wore equally radiant smiles. Just then, a soft crackle of divine energy drifted down from the sky. The column of light above them shimmered, then solidified into a silvery scroll listing the ranked cultivators. Line by line, names materialized, ascending from the lowest rank, until only one place remained. Xingluo Sanctuary's Ying Beido. A thunderous cheer rose from the gathered crowd. Ha! Beido did it! She really made it! Someone shouted. But moments later, a murmur of confusion rippled through the sanctua. Mirai. Wait, one official muttered. Why is she second, not first? Silence fell. The saint himself froze, eyes narrowing at the list. Xingluo's disciples, indeed cultivators across all 3,000 realms, had fully expected Ying Beido to claim the top spot. Outside the realms of Shenzhou too, practitioners craned their necks skyward, eager to see the name that had unseated their champion. And there, at the very top of the divine scroll, was an unfamiliar name. I'd be happy to help polish and rewrite the chapter. Could you please provide the full text of the chapter you'd like revised? That way I can ensure all plot points and details are preserved and presented in smooth, idiomatic English. Chapter 192. Wasn't the star body supposed to top the list? Am I dreaming? This can't be real. Ridiculous. Absolutely impossible. Across all of southern Xuanzhenzhou, uproar broke out. Even within the hallowed halls of Xingluo Holy Land, Ying Beido's composed countenance cracked. He stared at the name at the very top with a mixture of shock and contempt. Ye Cheng, from the 3,000 realms. 3,000 realms! Ying Beido snarled, his eyes gleaming coldly. That forsaken southern region, once shattered by the Sky Demon clan's invasion, the buffer lands between its realms obliterated, the realm walls weakened, spiritual energy leaking away into the void. Compared to the rest of southern Xuanzhenzhou, it's practically a wasteland. It scarcely produces one or two earthless talents, let alone the number one genius. How dare someone from there outshine me? Even the venerable elders and saints of Xingluo Holy Land would have scoffed at such a notion. Yet here it was, undeniable. Ye Cheng had claimed the top spot on the Earth list. They'd only just regained their senses, and their distrust was boundless. How on earth did Tianji Tower set up its rankings this time? Is there really someone in the 3,000 realms stronger than Ying Beido? The saints of Xingluo Holy Land seethed with anger. They had invited practitioners from all over to celebrate their beloved disciple's emergence from seclusion, her ascension to divine emperor, and her long-expected coronation atop the Earth list. Now those festivities threatened to become a national embarrassment. Master, please, don't let this rattle you, a junior cultivator urged softly. Xingluo Holy Lord flashed a dangerous look, but before he could reply, Ying Beido herself appeared in the distance, flanked by her own disciples. She drew a steady breath, then spoke in a calm, frosty tone. So some unknown challenger ended up first. Big deal. Mysteries always surrounded the Tianji Tower, but such upsets weren't unprecedented. On more than one occasion, a seemingly clear frontrunner had been suddenly overtaken by an unexpected contender, just as happened today. Even the Tianji Tower isn't omniscient. It can't possibly know every hidden technique each prodigy wields. I don't care what secret skill Ye Cheng, this unknown swordsman from the 3,000 realms, might possess that leads the tower to believe he could surpass me. It doesn't matter. Ying Beido's voice rang out, resolute as steel. She slammed a palm against the stone railing, sending a shockwave of authority through the courtyard. What can he hide that we won't discover when we meet face to face? A startled murmur rippled among the disciples of Xingluo Holy Land. One of the junior instructors swallowed hard and spoke with quavering awe. Saint Sun, do you intend to accept his challenge? Ying Beido rose to her full height, her aura flaring like a blazing dawn. Yes, spread my decree throughout Xingluo. 1 month from today, I will depart for Liyu, ranked number 1 among the 3,000 realms, and confront Ye Cheng in the capital, Yongning. I will draw sword against him and prove once and for all who truly deserves the title of Earthlist's number 1. Her words ignited the assembled saints and disciples. Elders exchanged proud nods. The junior disciples bowed in reverence, and even the venerable Saint Lord's eyes sparkled with approval. The coveted top spot on the Earth list might still lie unclaimed, but as long as the Saint Son of Xingluo Holy Land defeats Ye Cheng, the world will know exactly who stands at the summit of martial glory. People in the sacred land of Xingluo and the disciples of Ying Beido never doubted they would triumph. When the imperial decree of the Saint Son of Xingluo finally descended, an excited murmur rippled through the crowd. Then, in the very instant the Earth List rankings were announced, a lone swordsman, Ye Cheng, stepped forward, and the assembled Shenzhou monks gasped in disbelief. News of Ye Cheng's bold appearance spread like LD fire. Countless prodigies from Shenzhou hastily packed their belongings, boarded the celestial galleon, and set sail for Yongning Manor, eager to witness the clash that was destined to shake the 3,000 realms. Yet even as anticipation mounted, cultivators across every corner of the realm scoffed at the Saint Son of Xingluo's challenge. Underestimate His Highness Wuming? Preposterous. Does the Saint Son of Xingluo really have the strength to face him? Just because you felled a Saint Emperor giant, you think you're invincible? His Highness Wuming has already slain multiple god emperors and demon lords on the ancient battlefields. This is no ordinary opponent. Amid roars of excitement and derision alike, the stage was set for a duel that would echo through history. Which of those god emperors or heavenly demons even comes close to the golden-winged Saint Emperor who fell by Ying Beido's hand? Laughter rippled through the 3,000 realms cultivators. They had complete faith in the nameless swordsman, now known far and wide as Ye Cheng. Before long, the rumor reached the Beiming Sword Sect, one of the realm's top orthodox schools. Jian Rushuang had just emerged from seclusion when she heard the news. Her lips curved into a cold smile. She already regarded Ye Cheng as her master, and Xingluo Saint Sun's boast was nothing short of an affront to her lord's honor. Yet, even as she bristled at the insult, she couldn't help but smirk at his ignorance. You slaughtered a Saint Emperor and imagine yourself invincible? How laughable. To the majority of prodigies in the 3,000 realms, Ye Cheng's power indeed seemed unrivaled among all below the venerable tier. But Jian Rushuang, having witnessed his sword enlightenment in the depths of Buried Sword Gorge, knew the truth. Her master's combat prowess far surpassed that of any Saint Emperor, and stood as a challenge even to the venerables themselves. Under the aegis of the Sword Heart realm, Prince Ye Cheng's might was renowned throughout the 9 provinces. Should he ever choose to unleash his full strength, no one could say how devastating a single stroke of his blade might be. Even supreme giants at the threshold of the venerable realm would tremble at the prospect of facing him head-on. Yet since leaving the ancient battlefield, Prince Ye Cheng had quietly discarded his former guise as the nameless swordsman. Jian Rushuang found it almost unthinkable that he would stoop to answer the provocations of the Star Luo Saint. Your Highness? A soft voice interrupted her reverie. Jian Rushuang's young handmaiden paused in mid-polish of the spirit sword, her brow furrowed in concern. The announcement of the Star Luo Saint's arrival must have caught her off guard. Princess, the girl said, voice trembling slightly, Please don't worry. Prince Ye Cheng will surely defeat Ying Beidou. Jian Rushuang let out a rueful chuckle. She leaned forward and lightly tapped the girl's forehead. Oh, what do you know? You've only just awakened your true spirit, yet here you are comforting me. The little maid flushed but offered no further protest. Jian Rushuang's smile lingered, thoughtful and distant, already turning her mind toward the coming clash between Prince Ye Cheng and the legendary Ying Beidou. Go practice the sword techniques I taught you. Stop overthinking, urged the spirited young girl. Jian Rushuang drew a steady breath and settled her racing thoughts. She refused to be distracted by the ripples still lingering from the Star Luo Saint's intrusion. At this critical juncture in her sword cultivation, her focus was absolute. Ever since Ye Cheng had entrusted her with the enchanted sword talisman, her blade skills and personal cultivation had leapt forward. Confident that her next period of retreat would elevate her combat prowess to an entirely new plane, Jian Rushuang allowed a faint smile. She might not yet rival His Highness's raw strength, but even the formidable Saint Emperor giants would find no match for her sword. With her resolve firm, she vanished into seclusion. Far away in Jianglin City, nestled deep within the spirit realm, Ye Cheng received word of her invitation. Just as Jian Rushuang had predicted, he dismissed it as child's play. Since returning from the ancient battlefield, he himself had achieved phenomenal breakthroughs. Today alone marked a major leap in his realm. Training invitations could wait. If Ye Cheng didn't devote himself to consolidating his foundation, ascending to the Saint Emperor, or even the Venerable Realm, would be child's play. And yet here he was, a cultivator whose power rivaled a Saint Venerable, expected to compete for first place on the Earth ranking against a junior who'd only just broken into the Divine Emperor stage. It felt as absurd as a high schooler battling elementary pupils in a spelling bee. Even if he won, the victory would be a stain on his pride. He shook his head, a wry smile tugging at his lips. The heaven ranking might be worth my time, he mused, but the Earth ranking? I'll pass. His gaze drifted to the courtyard, where the Yunxi siblings were practicing with fierce focus. At their side, Gu Yiren chattered non-stop, her bright voice carrying across the grounds as she cheered them on. Grow up quickly, you two, he whispered affectionately. Once these youngsters matured, he was certain they'd have no trouble handling anyone who overestimated themselves. Ye Cheng himself didn't pay Beidou's challenge much mind. But out in the wider world, opinions swirled. A month passed in the blink of an eye, and the appointed battlefield, Yongning Mansion in Liu, was already swarming with spectators, all eager for the showdown to begin. Spectators poured in from every corner of the southern Xuan continent, and even from the distant 3,000 realms, to witness what promised to be a legendary duel. Yet as Saint Ying Beidou of the Star Luo sect finally strode into the arena, the hopeful crowd fell silent with disappointment. The mysterious swordsman had still not appeared. Where is that nameless swordsman? Someone muttered. Too afraid to show his face, or simply running late, came another whisper. Murmurs rippled through the stands. From the center of the empty battlefield, Ying Beidou surveyed the sea of expectant faces with a scornful smile. Then, raising his voice so that every street and rooftop of the city could hear, he proclaimed, If any of you are relatives or friends of that so-called nameless swordsman, rumored to be a young man named Ye Cheng, pass along this message. I, Ying Beidou, will wait here for exactly 7 days. If by then no challenger dares to step into this arena, I shall seize the top spot on the Earth rankings. His bold declaration spread like wildfire. Messengers raced through the city, and gossip-mongers shouted it from every corner. In the tranquil confines of Yongning Mansion's pavilion, a circle of prodigious cultivators set down their wine cups and turned toward one familiar figure at the table. Brother Jun, one of them asked, who do you think will win this duel? Jun Wanyan himself sat at the head of the table, a prodigy once bested by the Sky Demon Clan's champion on the ancient battlefield. Around him lounged a handful of other young geniuses, each the son of an emperor from some distant realm of Shenzhou. They'd become fast friends in their travels, and now that they'd all arrived in the 3,000 realms, they were keen to meet the mysterious swordsman whose reputation had spread like wildfire. One of them leaned forward, curiosity alight in his eyes. So tell us, Junwanian, who do you think will win? Junwanian, flushed from a cup of potent spiritual wine, let out a soft, amused chuckle. He waved away the question with a lazy flick of his hand, as if the answer were too obvious to debate. Even slightly inebriated, his gaze sharpened whenever he spoke of this swordsman, admiration and respect gleaming in his eyes. There's really no question, he said, voice warm and confident. Xingluo Saint wouldn't dare draw his sword against His Highness Wuming. Chapter 193, that really can't withstand a sword strike. Brother Jun, you're exaggerating again. Junwanian's offhand remark drew stunned looks from the other Tianjiaos at the table. A young woman, ranked 51st on the Earth list, just one place above him, couldn't hold back. You have no grounds for that claim, she said, her voice edging up. He placed in the top 60. Where's your proof that a single sword cut would fell him? Junwanian set down his teacup and met her gaze evenly. I speak only what I've learned. The so-called unknown swordsman may have flashy footwork and a unique sword style, but he lacks the true martial spirit that fuses blade and soul. Without that resonance, his defense collapses the instant real steel flies. Murmurs rippled around the polished stone table. No one present disliked Junwanian. Far from it. Born in the distant 3,000 realms, he'd already broken into the mid-50s on the coveted Earth list. Most of the other Tianjiaos agreed he had every chance of climbing even higher, perhaps breaking the top 30 one day. And since he shared a homeland with this mysterious swordsman, his assessment carried extra weight. Yet calling someone utterly incapable of withstanding a sword strike struck them as extreme. The woman inclined her head, folding her arms. I faced off against Ying Beido back when his reputation was still untested. I lost, and miserably so. I've no doubt he's a fearsome opponent, but you're saying this newcomer would crumble just as badly? Junwanian narrowed his eyes. Worse. Those who've seen him spar in the 3,000 realms confirm it. His technique is all style, no substance. Hand him a real swordmaster, someone like the Blackblade Hermit, and he'd last fewer than 10 breaths. A hush fell, broken only by the distant clink of porcelain. The assembled geniuses exchanged uncertain looks. None contradicted Junwanian outright, yet none could accept his words without reservation. Across the courtyard, Ye Cheng, the unknown swordsman himself, stood apart from the crowd. He wore simple robes, his expression unreadable. He'd heard every word. Now he waited. No one knew what he was thinking, but before long, they would all learn exactly how much steel his resolve could bear. Actually, it wasn't only her who'd been outmatched. Many of the prodigies gathered here, either in person or through their friends, had already fallen to Ying Beido. So they all murmured among themselves, no matter how talented this nameless swordsman might be, he can't possibly outshine her, right? You simply haven't seen Prince Ye Cheng in action, Junwanian insisted, his voice calm but firm. If you had witnessed him fight, you wouldn't doubt me for a second. He drew in a slow breath, the memory of Ye Cheng's stunning sweep across the human-demon stage flooding back. The way he had dispatched opponent after opponent with effortless precision still made Junwanian's blood race. Yet the surrounding geniuses remained unconvinced. Junwanian's own friends at the table accepted his praise readily enough, but the other prodigies, seated at different tables around the hall, glanced at him with thinly veiled annoyance. They bristled at his bold championing of an unknown swordsman who hadn't even appeared yet. After all, here at Yongning Mansion, the reigning stars were still Ying Beido and the mysterious challenger who was expected any moment. If they'd been hot-headed, someone among them would have already drawn blades to spar with Junwanian, but that didn't stop their barbed tongues. A frog in a well daring to lecture the dragon sweeping 9 heavens above. Exactly. Xingluo Saint's son, he who felled even the golden-winged Saint Emperor, and here comes some country bumpkin from the 3,000 realms, preaching to him. You don't know how vast the sky is, yet you chatter on like you do. Pathetic ignorance. Junwanian said nothing. His face was calm as still water, betraying no irritation. They were right, this exalted Nang was beyond their reckoning. The more they jeered now, the more bitter their chagrin would be when His Highness Wuming finally deigned to step in. Days slipped by, 1, 2, 3, until, in the blink of an eye, a full week had passed. On the evening of the 7th day, Yongning Mansion buzzed with excitement. Countless prodigies had gathered, and venerable masters from every corner of Shenzhou filled the halls, all clamoring to see how this titanic confrontation would end. Everyone in the restaurant froze. There was still no sign of the nameless swordsman. Junwanian, who had so confidently vouched for Ye Cheng, felt his confidence draining away. He'd been counting on Ye Cheng's arrival to humiliate Ying Beido with undeniable proof of his strength. But none of it mattered if Ye Cheng didn't show. Now Junwanian found himself in over his head. And it wasn't just him. Every prodigy from the 3,000 realms who'd heard about Ye Cheng's exploits, even the nameless swordsman who had sparred with him recently, wore the same puzzled look. With Lord Wuming's reputation, subduing someone like Ying Beido should have been a formality. Why, then, was no one here to challenge him? Wait, Junwanian whispered, a sudden thought striking him. His eyes widened, and his face twisted into a strange mixture of horror and disbelief. Around the table, the other young geniuses, those who had witnessed Ye Cheng's power firsthand, stared at him, equally stunned. If Ye Cheng wasn't coming, what did that mean for all of them? Maybe Prince Wuming isn't here because he's afraid. Exactly. He probably thinks Ying Beido isn't worth his time. At that, cultivators from Shenzhou's outer regions sneered in contempt. What a flimsy excuse. Who wouldn't die for the prestige of leading the Earth rankings? Right. Every prodigy dreams of claiming the top spot on the Earth rankings. Junwanian and the others exchanged bitter smiles. They understood how much this honor meant to those defending Ye Cheng's reputation, but Ye Cheng himself needed no such validation. After all, he had once cleaved through the Demon Clan Emperor with a single slash, as effortlessly as a butcher slaughtering livestock on an ancient battlefield. Junwanian parted his lips to protest, then closed his mouth with a soft sigh. He shook his head and shared a wry look with the other renowned geniuses of the 3,000 realms. Some words are so outlandish that no one would believe them if spoken, so it's often wiser to stay silent. Still, the whispers spread. His Highness Wuming is the Nine Heavens' true dragon. Just you wait, his renown will sweep across Shenzhou before long. Who's right and who's wrong? Time and public opinion will tell. But when Junwanian and his companions remained silent, the onlookers, especially Ying Beido, grew ever more brazen. You've got nothing to say, huh? First place on the Earth list? What a joke. The Tianji Tower rankings are way off this time. Ying Beido sneered from the stage, shaking his head as if he felt genuine disappointment. I was looking forward to a real fight. It seems I wasn't wrong about the 3,000 realms. True geniuses are few and far between, mostly cowards and frogs stuck in their own well. He glanced toward Junwanian's pavilion in the distance. In recent days, stories had spread of how Junwanian had repeatedly defended the nameless swordsman, earning the admiration of many cultivators beyond their domain. Even Ying Beido, at the center of this dispute, knew well the reputation that Junwanian and the young swordsman he championed had begun to forge. Ye Cheng watched Junwanian with practiced restraint as the other man exchanged idle banter at his side. What stung most was Jun's final barb, that the nameless prince, Ye Cheng himself, would never dare face him in combat. Ying Beido, standing a few paces off, bristled at the insult. His lips curled into a contemptuous smile, ready to mock Junwanian in kind. Before a single word could leave Ying Beido's mouth, a chill, composed voice drifted over the walls of Yongning Prefecture and fell upon the gathered crowd like an unexpected frost. A frog in a well? The question rang clear and cold, momentarily freezing every tongue and stilling every breath. Then the voice came again, faintly amused. Ying Beido, are you merely congratulating yourself? A ripple of stunned murmurs swept through the martial artists and onlookers. Every pair of eyes swung toward the eastern gate, searching for the speaker, brave enough to scorn two of the realm's most formidable fighters. In that hush, even Junwanian and Ying Beido paused, their challenges momentarily forgotten, as they waited to see who dared to shatter their arrogance with nothing more than a few soft syllables. Chapter 194. A single echo of her voice faded into the air, and in the next instant, a streak of swordlight cleaved the sky. Under the astonished gazes of every onlooker, that blade of radiance swept in from the west, bathing the entire city in a silvery glow. Tens of thousands of cultivators instinctively held their breath, their eyes locked on the phenomenon above with reverent awe. Even the ancient god emperors and saint emperors, veterans of countless battles, felt a hint of murderous intent radiating from the swordlight. Their brows twitched, and they squinted against the brilliance to make out the figure at its center, a stunning youth clad in white, poised upon the gleaming beam. Is that Jian Rushuang? I thought she barely made the top 70 on the Earth list. The new rankings bumped her up a few places, but she's only 71st. To risk confronting the Star Luo Saint at such a moment, does she want to die? A ripple of unease spread through the crowd. Faces that had brimmed with excitement turned uneasy, and even the prodigies of the 3,000 realms exchanged anxious glances. None could deny the courage, or the recklessness, of the girl in white. Although Ying Beidou and the visiting prodigies bristled at the way Ye Cheng, the so-called nameless swordsman, had been ridiculed, they could not deny one glaring fact. Aside from Ye Cheng himself, every outsider here trailed far behind the cultivators of the other regions of the southern mysterious continent, and none could hope to match Ying Beidou's prowess. Jun Wannian reached out, determined to hold back Jian Rushuang and warn her against acting on impulse. But before he could speak, a sudden swish cut through the air. In the next instant, Jian Rushuang reappeared atop a shaft of swordlight. Her delicate, jade-white feet barely made a sound as she landed in the center of the battle ring, standing directly opposite Ying Beidou. Her eyes glowed with fierce determination, an expression that left every spectator breathless. No one had expected her to join the fray. Jian Rushuang had originally planned merely to observe. She had returned earlier than scheduled from her retreat, harboring a slim, 1 in 10,000 hope that she might catch sight of her beloved prince in action. Yet when Ying Beidou hurled another taunt in Ye Cheng's direction, it was clear that her carefully nurtured hopes had been in vain. The arch-rival's words bounced off Ye Cheng like raindrops on polished steel, ignored, unheeded. Now, poised on the swordlight and facing Ying Beidou, Jian Rushuang's unexpected arrival sent ripples of shock, worry, and scorn through the assembly. The stage was set for a confrontation no one had seen coming. Chapter 8. The Bold Challenge. When Ying Beidou and the other outsider prodigies openly mocked her prince and taunted the honor of the 3,000 realms, Jian Rushuang could no longer stand by in silence. Jun Wannian and the rest of her sectmates lacked the confidence to face Ying Beidou, but Rushuang was different. Only moments before, she had deciphered the sword talisman that Ye Cheng had entrusted to her. The surge of power it granted was nothing short of miraculous. While it didn't rival Ye Cheng's own meteoric rise, from the Heavenly Emperor realm all the way to Divine Emperor perfection, it was still a monumental leap. Jian Rushuang had vaulted from the middle stage of the mysterious Emperor realm to the late stage of the Heavenly Queen realm. At the same time, her swordcraft blossomed to the perfect earth sword level, and with a sudden flash of insight, she unlocked a hidden technique passed down from the legendary Beiming sword sect. With that newfound might, she was confident she could fell even a mid-stage Holy Emperor giant. Stepping onto the arena floor, Rushuang's eyes blazed. The surrounding crowd fell hushed as she swept her gaze across Ying Beidou's scoffing expression. "You called His Highness a frog trapped in a well?" Her voice was cool, but each word rang like steel. "Very well, put your mockery to the test. Defeat me first, and only then will you have the right to challenge His Highness." With that, a fierce aura burst from Jian Rushuang, rippling through the arena and silencing every onlooker in awe of her sudden and undeniable power. "Fight me?" At Jian Rushuang's challenge, Ying Beidou's eyes narrowed, dripping with contempt. "You? A nobody ranked 71st on the Earth list. When did you earn the right to bark orders at me? Step down from the stage." Without waiting another moment, Ying Beidou unleashed her spiritual power. A low, rumbling roar exploded from her throat, morphing into rolling, crushing sound waves that surged toward Jian Rushuang. The entire arena trembled. Dust and loose stones rattled as though the ground itself feared her wrath. Even the monks gathered to watch turned pale at the sheer force of her roar. Yet Jian Rushuang never flinched. Calm and collected, She lifted her hand so that her sword tip rose gracefully before her. In the blink of an eye, a sliver of spiritual light gleamed along the blade's edge. Snap! The invisible shockwave shattered into two clean halves against Jian Rushuang's sword. The pieces dissipated instantly, leaving not a trace of Ying Beidou's assault. Jian Rushuang didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, lifted his hand, and unleashed a blade of pure light. "I not worthy?" he murmured, ice in his voice. "Then let my sword decide." The radiant arc cut through the air like a silver crescent moon, trailing a gale so powerful it felt as if it could split heaven and earth. Wherever its light passed, the very atmosphere seemed to buckle. The young talents seated behind Ying Beidou all felt a crushing weight on their chests, their breaths catching in their throats. Ying Beidou's face went pale. He stared at Jian Rushuang as if confronting a specter, his earlier contempt vanishing in an instant. With a guttural shout, he called forth his spirit weapon. In his hand blossomed a black banner embroidered with 108 twinkling stars. He strained his chi through it, and the banner sprang to life, rising into the air, expanding into a luminous curtain of swirling galaxies. Under the astonished gaze of every cultivator present, swordlight and starcloth met in a thunderous collision. Silver crescent and stellar veil crashed together, neither yielding an inch. The power of their clash sent ripples through the very sky, and for a heartbeat, the two forces stood locked in perfect equilibrium. Draw! Draw! Granted, the Starluo Saint's sloppy guard played a part, but this Jian Rushuang is ranked only in the 70s on the Earth list. How on earth did she do that? Even Ying Beidou and the cultivators gathered from across the states stared in stunned silence at the shattered galaxy curtain. Beside them, Junwanian and the other champions of the 3,000 realms were equally astonished, every pair of eyes fixed on Jian Rushuang as though she were a phantom. "Though I'm no match for his highness, I'm but a firefly beside the full moon. I did learn my swordsmanship from him," Jian Rushuang said, her voice composed yet cold. She glided forward in liquid, lotus-like steps. In one smooth motion, she lifted her spirit sword and leveled it at Ying Beidou, whose face had gone deathly pale. "If you dare challenge his highness," Jian Rushuang declared, "you must defeat me first." A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Even Junwanian and his peers involuntarily drew in their breath. On the ancient battlefield, they had heard of Jian Rushuang and of her quiet bond with the nameless prince. Now, faced with her formidable skill, they finally understood why. Whether the old rumors were true or not, no one could say, until this very moment. Now the truth lay revealed, and everyone present felt a pang of envy toward Jian Rushuang. Even the so-called outer-world geniuses, Ying Beidou among them, wore dark, uneasy expressions. Ying Beidou in particular felt genuine alarm. He'd witnessed Jian Rushuang's power in their last duel. It may not have matched his own fully, but it was surely enough to rank in the top 10 of the Earth list. And now word had come that an unknown swordsman possessed strength on par with those top 10. Not even Ying Beidou could be so bold as to claim that for himself. He exhaled slowly, pushing aside his doubts. Speculating further would get him nowhere. The true measure of that mysterious swordsman's skill would only reveal itself in battle. Right now, the only fight that mattered was the one unfolding before him. With cold determination flashing in his eyes, Ying Beidou dropped all hesitation and swept his arm forward in a decisive gesture. At that moment, Ye Cheng swept up the Tiangong Disha star banner with a roar. Infused with his spiritual power, the banner unfurled into a 10,000-foot-tall curtain of blinding light. With inexorable force, it bore down upon Jian Rushuang, one of Xingluo Holy Land's great divine arts, galaxy convergence. Spectators gasped. Within the towering light curtain, starlight flowed like water, and countless spirit-forged stars drifted silently in formation. Each added star only increased its weight and pressure, sending a suffocating force rippling outward. Even the most battle-hardened gods felt their hearts constrict at its might. No one dared step forward, lest they be crushed to pulp beneath Ye Cheng's overwhelming power. Indeed, the Xingluo Holy Sun, who aspired to claim the top spot on the Earth ranking, had proven himself worthy of the challenge. And yet, as the galaxy of light descended, Jian Rushuang met it not with fear, but with utter indifference. His eyes, cool and unflinching, swept over the destructive cascade. You call this all you have? He murmured, his voice soft yet laced with contempt. With such a paltry display, you would dare challenge his highness? Swish! A blinding beam of sword chi erupted from the ground and shot skyward, cutting through the spiritual currents. In that instant, thousands of individual sword lights responded to its call. One by one, they surged into the void, defying the flow. 1, 2, 3, until 1,000 had gathered. Then, as if drawn by an invisible hand, they fused into a single colossal blade of golden radiance. 10,000 feet long, it stood like a majestic pillar, propping up the very heavens. All at once, the assembled crowd fell silent. Under the weight of that titanic sword light, Ying Beidou's Xianxia formation, her shimmering starry sea curtain, quivered on the brink of collapse. Crack! A sharp, resounding crack shattered the tense stillness. Before everyone's astonished eyes, the starry sea curtain exploded into countless fragments of spiritual light, scattering like a swarm of luminous fireflies across the sky and earth. Chapter 195. What did I just witness? How could Xianxia, such a peerless killing technique, be undone so casually? Across the arena, every genius in the outer world held their breath, eyes wide with disbelief as they stared at Jian Rushuang on the stage. Before they could even begin to process the shock, Jian Rushuang lifted her hand again. With a sharp swish, the shadow of the sky pillar soared. An immense blade said to prop up the heavens and shine in all directions, reappeared. Though it had shattered Ying Beidou's arcane assault only moments before, its radiance had dimmed only slightly. Its killing power still surged toward the sky. At Jian Rushuang's command, the sword resumed its relentless pursuit of Ying Beidou. Ying Beidou's face paled. Seeing his Xianxia technique broken so swiftly, he let out a furious roar and thrust his palm forward. Spiritual energy crackled and coalesced into a palm print wreathed in starlight, hurtling straight for the golden greatsword. The two forces met with a thunderous explosion that seemed to shake heaven and earth. Blinding divine lights erupted in every direction, cascading like waves and sending ripples of power soaring between heaven and earth. Even the most seasoned spectators felt the ground tremble beneath them. In that moment, they realized they were witnessing a clash of titans, an unparalleled battle that would be spoken of for generations to come. The shockwave from their clash was so fierce that every monk on the sidelines instinctively held his breath, and then backed away, terrified of being caught in the fallout. "Is this really a duel between the younger generation?" someone whispered, awestruck. Even the old masters, especially those who had traveled here from distant lands, felt a cold pang of obsolescence. They'd spent decades basking in the glow of past triumphs, only to discover that this new crop of Tianjiao had not only caught up with them, but left them in the dust. Before they could dwell on it any longer, a deafening crack split the air. At the very center of the arena, a figure was blasted backwards. It was none other than the Xingluo saint, Ying Beidou, the one whose killing intent was widely believed to eclipse that of any young talent in all of Shenzhou. Ying Beidou, defeated! The foreign prodigies lining the perimeter gaped in disbelief. They had no close ties to Ying Beidou, but as peers from other states, they never imagined he could be so utterly bested. If Ying Beidou were to fall before the 3,000 realms, whom he'd always looked down on, and a mere country genius like Ye Cheng, it would be a crushing humiliation. Yet, the moment he seemed destined to fly out of the ring, the outcome took an astonishing turn. Ying Beidou paused abruptly in midair, hanging there as if suspended by invisible threads. Across the dusty expanse, Jian Rushuang's silhouette emerged behind the shockwave, and Ying's eyes locked onto his with something more than surprise. There was pride there, too. "Fascinating," boomed a clear, resonant voice. Xingluo Saint San stepped forward, his robes billowing as his aura flared once more. "I never imagined a genius like you existed in the 3,000 realms. This Saint Sun is genuinely impressed." He paused, surveying the assembled warriors. "I had thought none of my contemporaries could withstand my full strength. But now, it seems I must acknowledge you, and that nameless prince you mentioned, as worthy opponents." With those words, his power swelled around him like a rising storm. The monks gathered ringside gaped in awe, unable to tear their eyes away from the dazzling display. The display of power by Ye Cheng, the holy son of Xingluo, Just now was enough to send even veteran Saint Emperors into a panic. And that wasn't even his full strength. If this was only a fraction of his true power, then where does his ceiling lie? Middle stage Saint Emperor level, murmured a few of the older God Emperors, their voices trembling in shock. Around them, the assembled prodigies from the outer lands exchanged wide-eyed looks. One of them spoke up, excitement lacing his tone. He's already cultivated the Xinglo Sacred Domain's ultimate technique, the Nine Lights Grand Divine Art. Indeed, another added. He's unleashed countless lethal moves so far, but his real trump card has yet to be revealed. No sooner were the words out than Ying Beidou, a towering figure among the heavenly ranks, lifted his hand and trained his gaze on Jian Rushuang, who hovered at the edge of the cloud sea. Initiate the Star Destroyer wheel formation. A moment later, a low rumble swept through the 9 heavens. In the boundless expanse above the clouds, pillars of shimmering energy descended like miniature galaxies, each one humming with raw destructive potential. The gathering stalemates vanished in an instant. Now every eye was fixed on the formation as it took shape, ready to unleash its fearsome might. Suddenly, 9 pillars of radiant light shot up behind Ying Beidou, coalescing into a colossal star-destroying wheel that made him look positively otherworldly. Under its blessing, his aura swelled and his killing intent spiked to unprecedented heights. In the stands, murmurs rose like thunder. That's the 7th-ranked killing technique of the 9 Lights Grand Divine Power. Only Emperor Realm Giants can master it. And here he is, a Divine Emperor, unleashing it flawlessly. He wields the Star Divine Body, the rare, top 3 physique that draws upon stellar energy as its power source. It's perfectly in tune with the 9 Lights' grand divine ability. No wonder it's famed for suppressing all rivals. With just one move, he matches the might of mid-stage holy emperors. Who could possibly withstand such ferocity? As whispers of astonishment rippled through the crowd, and even the elder divine emperor titans, veterans of countless battles, could do nothing but stare in awed silence at Ying Beidou's display of power. In lineage, status, and raw power, none of them could hold a candle to this prodigy. The geniuses of the 3,000 realms clenched their fists in dismay as they watched Jian Rushuang's duel, Jun Wanyan included. There's no way she can win. This battle's over. Their opponent's strength was simply too great. Despite every ounce of effort Jian Rushuang poured into the fight, the onlookers only sneered. Too bad His Highness Wuming couldn't make it today, spat one of the realm's champions, voice thick with scorn. Otherwise, this ignorant fool Ye Cheng never would have claimed first place on the Earth ranking. Just as the crowd braced itself for Jian Rushuang's defeat, she lifted her head. Across the ring, Ying Beidou stood supremely confident, already savoring victory. Then a faint, knowing smile curved Jian Rushuang's lips. Is that all you've got? Her voice was soft, but it carried over every spectator. You dare challenge my highness with such paltry strength? You don't even faze me. Before anyone could respond, a thunderous boom erupted. Jian Rushuang unleashed a sudden, devastating shockwave that rippled across the arena floor and slammed into Ying Beidou. Under the horrified gasps of the crowd, the tide of battle shifted in an instant. Jian Rushuang lifted her hand. Instantly, the spirit sword in her grip surged with raw power, its blade splitting into countless rays of light that coalesced into a vast sea of phantoms. A roaring tide of spectral forms swept forward with unstoppable force, bearing down on Ying Beidou. The sheer intensity of that attack stole the breath of every onlooker. Geniuses and masters alike froze in their tracks, hearts pounding at the overwhelming pressure. Only Ying Beidou stood his ground, though terror glinted in his eyes. With a strangled cry, he poured every ounce of spiritual energy into the star-destroying wheel formation, weaving its intricate seals into a desperate shield. But Jian Rushuang's assault was too fierce. In barely 10 heartbeats, the formation began to crack. Wave after wave of swordlight crashed against it, each impact splintering the runes until the protective barrier shattered. The next surge of phantasmal energy hurled Ying Beidou from the arena like a broken shell, sending him sprawling across the ground. He lay motionless, unconscious, his fate uncertain, a grim testament to Jian Rushuang's unrivaled might. The sharp thud of Ying Beidou's body striking the arena floor finally jolted everyone back to reality. All eyes snapped to Jian Rushuang, who stood motionless atop the platform, faces drained of color, as if they'd glimpsed a phantom. This shock wasn't limited to the outsiders watching. Even the luminaries of the 3,000 realms, among them several towering masters of the Beiming sword sect, stared at their own imperial daughter in stunned silence. What did I just see? Someone whispered hoarsely. That was sea covering style, the supreme killing art of the Beiming Grand Arcane Powers. Within the cultivation world, the Grand Arcane Powers are legendary disciplines attainable only by those at Saint Emperor level or higher. All 9 arts are formidable, but sea covering style ranks first in sheer killing force. So impossible to master below the Emperor realm that few even dare attempt it. This was precisely why Ying Beidou had always looked down on her peers. Publicly, she wielded only the star-destroying formation, the 7th of the 9 lights, but now she had revealed the devastating truth of her true power. Jian Rushuang, princess of the Beiming sword sect, had just unveiled the #1 killing technique among all the great magical arts. The revelation struck the arena with a force that made even the fall of Ying Beidou seem tame by comparison, hundreds of times more shocking, perhaps 1,000. For a long moment, every eye was fixed on her in stunned silence. On the elevated stage, she stood in a pure white gown that shimmered like freshly fallen snow. Her beauty was transcendent, her bearing serene. Though countless admirers' gazes burned with awe and disbelief, Jian Rushuang remained perfectly composed, her calm gaze sweeping over the assembled geniuses. "You have all witnessed the end of Ying Beidou," she said, her voice clear and unhurried. A faint smile touched her lips. "My prince Ye Cheng chose not to face you, not out of fear, but because he saw no honor in such a contest. I, however, am not so timid. If any of you doubt my strength, step forward, challenge me, defeat me. I will even demonstrate my sword skill without reservation." She paused, drawing in a slow, deliberate breath, her eyes locking onto each challenger in turn. Then, with perfect poise, she awaited their response. "My swordsmanship isn't even a 10,000th as good as my prince's," Jian Rushuang declared, her voice calm yet firm. With that, she swung her sword in a graceful arc that caught the dying light, cast one last proud glance at the assembled onlookers, and then quietly turned on her heel and walked away. Silence fell over the crowd of talented warriors she'd just bested. Moments later, bewildered murmurs spread from mouth to mouth. "Are you kidding me? She says her skill is only 1/10,000th of Prince Ye Cheng's? Then what on earth did we just witness?" Chapter 196. Jian Rushuang's final blow sent Ying Beidou reeling before he drifted away, defeated and humiliated. A stunned silence fell over the arena, quickly replaced by a surge of awe and speculation as every gaze turned toward Ye Cheng. To hear Jian Rushuang admit that his own swordsmanship isn't even 1/10,000th as refined as this stranger's. "Just how extraordinary must his talent be?" murmured the younger fighters, their eyes wide with wonder. Seasoned masters, too, felt their hearts quicken. They recalled tales of long-vanished immortal sects and secret gentry families whose prodigies once shook the heavens. Could Ye Cheng be the hidden heir of one such ancient order, poised to reshape the world's fate? Whispers spread like wildfire. Whenever a talent this peerless emerges, it signals the dawn of a new golden age, an era where heroes rise to meet destiny. In that moment, beneath the watchful sky, every soul sensed that the balance of power had shifted, and that Ye Cheng's true journey was only just beginning. Geniuses blessed with the star god body may glitter like stars, but their brilliance is edged with cruelty. The grander the age, the deadlier the competition among prodigies. With the coming golden age, the path to sainthood and even immortality will open wide. Yet that promise carries a terrible price. When the age truly dawns, countless geniuses will lie as smoking bones, and innumerable goddesses will perish. Some of the old heroes still living today shudder at the thought, as though they've glimpsed a horrific future. Rivers of blood, endless skeletons of the gifted, and mountains of severed heads once crowned emperors. Even saints soaring high in the heavens will be felled, all to ensure the immortality of a chosen few. The beginning of the Golden Age. In the winehouse at Yongning Mansion, every face, whether from the 3,000 realms or from distant worlds, grew pale. Conversations halted as a chilling realization passed silently among them. Even Junwanian, though he looked up to Prince Wuming with all his heart, felt his youth betray him. He had never truly fathomed the cost of a golden age. Ye Cheng felt as though he were still dreaming. Junwanian's words snapped him back to reality, and his heart pounded in his chest. The other young prodigies seated around the table had at first dismissed His Highness Wuming's lavish praise as mere exaggeration. Now, that admiration had curdled into envy, not toward Junwanian himself, but toward Jian Rushuang, who had entrusted His Highness with such an extraordinary protégé. Whether the Golden Age had truly arrived remained uncertain, but any discerning eye could see one thing clearly. With His Highness Wuming's unmatched talent, he would stand at the very summit when that era dawned. To serve by his side was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. How could they not covet it? I can't fathom how the 3,000 realms could have produced a genius like him. News of the Yongning Mansion contest spread like wildfire throughout Nanshuan Shenzhou. Prodigies poured in from every corner of the world, and Jian Rushuang's renown soared to new heights. By decisively defeating Xingluo Shengzi, Ye Cheng not only secured victory, but also vaulted into second place on the Earth list, supplanting Xingluo Shengzi entirely. Compared to Jian Rushuang, the nameless swordsman drew even more attention. Ancient masters sighed, as if recalling the long-lost Golden Age, while every major sect buzzed with excitement and disbelief. Could he really be a descendant of the immortal sect? They say he's an unrivaled prodigy, born of some ancient bloodline. Perhaps he'll usher in a new Golden Age. Rumors reached the Beiming sword sect, Tianshu Pavilion, Lingyu Jianglin, and, of course, the Gu family, all clans intimately connected to Ye Cheng. The moment Jian Rushuang and luminaries like Qiang Saint of Tianshu Pavilion caught wind of it, their eyes widened. Even the elders and junior disciples of the Gu family could hardly conceal their astonishment. They knew exactly who the nameless swordsman was, their own pavilion master, Ye Cheng. Still, while Jian Rushuang and Ye Cheng's father, Gu Yuan, greeted the gossip with mocking sneers, the two Saint Vice Pavilion masters of Tianshu Pavilion exchanged thoughtful glances. Their restrained expressions hinted that, despite the jeers around them, they were far more intrigued, and perhaps even wary, of what this mysterious young man might truly become. Across the southern mysterious continent, whispered rumors spread like wildfire. The pavilion master of the Tianshu Pavilion had been personally named heir by that enigmatic lord. From this angle, it all suddenly made sense. Surely he must be the legendary prodigy nurtured by the immortal sect. Qiang and Yunjiao, two of the Tianshu Pavilion's saints, could hardly contain their excitement. It felt as if the golden goose they had secured only grew more lustrous by the day. Meanwhile, Ye Cheng, deep in meditation within the spirit realm, remained blissfully unaware of their jubilation. All he perceived were the distant echoes of those same rumors drifting across the land. He shook his head wryly. People's imaginations truly know no bounds. By first light at the Gu family estate in Jiangling, Ye Cheng emerged onto the courtyard, muscles still stiff from a night of strenuous training. His father, Gu Yuan, was already waiting, eyes twinkling with anticipation. Ye Cheng, Gu Yuan began, visibly brimming with excitement. Have you heard? They're saying the pavilion master is destined to succeed the Tianshu Pavilion. Everyone's convinced he's the immortal sect's super genius. Ye Cheng frowned and let out a small sigh. Father, these are just baseless rumors. There's no need to get carried away. Gu Yuan laughed, placing a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. Our Gu family doesn't rely on gossip. We have you, our true dragon-born talent. That's more than enough. In the future, perhaps our family really could rise to the level of an ancient clan. Gu Yuan's hand settled on Ye Cheng's shoulder, a gesture meant to reassure, though his face showed he didn't entirely believe it himself. To become an ancient clan meant having origins tied directly to the dawn of Taoist civilization, lineages founded by cultivators who had already transcended the emperor realm and strode the saint realm. On today's Nanshuan divine continent, no such clans remained in the open world. They had all sealed themselves away in pocket dimensions, safeguarding their legacies until the world matured enough for them to return and ascend to immortality. By comparison, the Gu family of the present day was still far from its former glory. At its greatest height, it had been nothing more than a modest saint-level sect, puny next to any of the current emperor sects, each of which could crush it without so much as raising a finger. Gu Yuan understood this perfectly. His words were not a literal prophecy, but a father's encouragement to his son, no different from ordinary parents urging their children to excel in their studies, simple, heartfelt, and full of care. Ye Cheng watched his father's face, so eager to look encouraging, then sighed inwardly. He didn't share his father's reverence for the ancient family or the immortal sect. With the cultivation system at his command, even without drawing on its full power, his current talent alone would carry him into the saint realm. He'd not only raise their house to true ancient family status, but in time, dominate all the rest. It was all but guaranteed. Still, there was no need to parade these ambitions in front of his father. Too much talk would only sound like empty boasting. He was about to let the subject drop when a familiar chime echoed in his mind. Ding! Ye Cheng's eyes snapped open. The system's prompt appeared in his mental interface. Congratulations, host. Lan Qingxuan has successfully become pregnant. Congratulations, host. You are to have a child. Child attributes are as follows. Lines of data scrolled by, and a smile spread across Ye Cheng's face. This change of fortune was even better than he'd dared hope. After a moment, Ye Cheng, having finally finished poring over the ancient records, let out a long, measured breath. He gathered the thrill and amazement racing through him, then turned to his father with a teasing glint in his eye. Father, you really shouldn't underestimate yourself. Gu Yuan stared at his son, puzzled. Then he saw Ye Cheng curl his lips into a faint smile, pat his shoulder in the very way Gu Yuan had patted him, and say in a calm voice, Go back and call all the clan members together. My next move is going to be rather significant. Significant? What do you mean by that? Gu Yuan's brow furrowed. Ye Cheng's expression remained unreadable as he leaned back, speaking at a leisurely pace. Just tell everyone this. The Gu family may not have realized it before, but after today, we finally know we have what it takes. He paused, letting the anticipation build, to overtake the ancient clan and to transform our own into the immortal fairy tribe. Chapter 197. As his father stormed away in stunned silence, Ye Cheng stood rooted to the spot. Taking a steadying breath, he activated his cultivation system. The holographic prompts glowed before him. Name unassigned. Gender, fate, innate. Physique, innate holy body Dao Tai. Description, a supreme physique forged from the fusion of the heavenly refining holy body and the eternal Dao Tai, counted among the top 3 of the 3,000 divine bodies in the heavens. Innate fate, red 9th grade, Ye Cheng murmured, eyes narrowing with fascination. He let the information settle, then glanced toward the bedroom door, where his wife, Xuanhuang, lay sleeping. Her rounded stomach spoke of the child they were soon to welcome. Although the baby had yet to draw breath, Ye Cheng could already sense the potent life force budding within her. This unborn son's innate destiny, the holy body Dao Tai, was even more extraordinary than Ye Cheng's own heavenly refining holy body, despite them sharing the same red 9th grade classification. Of course, the difference made sense. The heavenly refining holy body elevates spiritual awareness and divine cognition, but the Dao Tai fate grants a far greater reservoir of physical power and resilience. In other words, his son would inherit a physique that ranked among the very strongest in all creation. A swell of pride warmed Ye Cheng's chest. Soon, his little boy would enter the world carrying a legacy mightier than his own, and in time, he would become truly unstoppable. Ye Cheng felt a surge of energy ripple through him. His innate holy body, the Dao fetus, quivered with latent power, promising dramatic boosts to his divine intent, physique, cultivation, comprehension, and even his killing strength. Yet he knew there remained a yawning gap between his current red 9th grade and the next tier. He exhaled softly, not in frustration but in awe. Before he could ponder further, a familiar chime echoed in his mind. Ding! Congratulations, host. You have obtained the reward, innate fate chaos body, 1st grade immortal fate. Would you like to extract it? Reading the system prompt, Ye Cheng couldn't suppress a pleased grin. The innate holy body Dao fetus alone wouldn't forge an immortal race, but since his son already possessed that supreme Dao fetus, As a father, he was eligible for far greater fate rewards. And a first-grade immortal fate was exactly what he needed. A swirl of 9-colored divine light coalesced around the Chaos Body icon, its brilliance reflecting in Ye Cheng's eager eyes. Without hesitation, he issued his command mentally. Extract! Ding! The confirmation chime resonated through his soul as the first-grade immortal fate began to merge with him. Ye Cheng braced himself, ready to harness this new power and ascend beyond the limits of the red 9th grade. A new entry suddenly appears in Ye Cheng's attribute panel. Life pattern unlocked, Chaos Body, first-class immortal life. Born with the physique of a soaring immortal. Wields the primal power of chaos, able to shatter all things and transcend every law. Supreme among 3,000 divine bodies, unless he is truly slain, ascension to immortality in one lifetime is assured. The moment the system completes this update, a low, resonant hum echoes through the void. Above Ye Cheng, boundless streams of Xuanhuang Chao's qi descend like a star-strewn river, draping him in celestial light. In that instant, he seems less a man than a deity forging a world. Ancient, limitless energies pulse outward from his core, as though every law of existence bows to his presence. Under the purifying flood of chaos qi, Ye Cheng's body undergoes a transformation so profound it defies description. From the surface of his skin to his marrow-deep bones, flesh and blood are remade, refined to a state of perfect harmony with the primordial void. At the same time, his spiritual foundation crystallizes into an ethereal sanctuary, its clarity deepening his insight into martial technique and the art of killing. Every move he has ever learned, every deadly skill he has ever practiced, now resonates within him with newfound power and precision. In that charged stillness, Ye Cheng stands reborn, his destiny forever altered by the chaos that courses through him. Immortality is no longer a distant dream, but an inevitability waiting to be claimed. Ye Cheng felt a fierce surge of power coursing through him. Even after breaking into the sword realm, where progress normally slows, his swordsmanship, far from stalling, accelerated with astonishing speed. Until now, he'd only achieved a minor breakthrough in sword arts. But the moment he activated the chaotic constitution, his sword intent exploded, thrusting him straight into the perfected heart of the sword. Not only did his sword skills ascend, but his entire cultivation level rocketed upward. He hadn't been forcing the breakthrough. Rather, the relentless assault of chaotic energy on his body had both tempered and purified him, driving his physical form to its ultimate threshold. If he failed to shatter this barrier, that same chaos would have torn him apart from the inside out. The cultivation system chimed again, signaling another reminder, but Ye Cheng couldn't afford distractions. He already knew what was coming the instant he donned the chaotic constitution, or Chaos Body, as the old records called it. Without this extraordinary vessel, he wouldn't have risked such a leap, and he certainly wouldn't have asked his father to alert the tribesmen to stand ready. Now, with his swordsmanship perfected and his inner strength soaring, Ye Cheng braced himself for whatever lay ahead. The world had shifted under his feet, and he was determined to master every shred of power the Chaos Body had unleashed. Ye Cheng hadn't doubted for a moment that the Chaos Body deserved its reputation as the greatest of the 3,000 divine bodies. Its power boost was far more sweeping and transformative than he had ever dared to imagine. At last, his divine senses rippled outward, scanning every corner of Jianglan City and confirming that each member of his family was safe and sound. Yet he didn't pause to rest. With a single determined step, he ascended into the rolling sea of clouds above the city and let his cultivation aura surge in a dazzling display. In an instant, a thunderous roar split the sky. Ominous black clouds billowed in every direction, swallowing Jianglan City beneath their shadow. Below, cultivators of all ranks looked upward in astonishment, necks craned and eyes wide as the heavens darkened unexpectedly. Inside the Gu family mansion, a hush fell over the assembled kin. Summoned hastily by the clan leader, they exchanged puzzled glances. Surely something momentous had occurred. Whispers spread through the great hall until the clan leader's voice rang out. This was all the doing of the young master. Their curiosity piqued. They strained for details, expecting some formal decree or important announcement. Then, without warning, a muffled crack of thunder reverberated overhead. The entire assembly froze, faces lifting as one, pupils dilating in shock at the unprecedented spectacle unfolding above them. Is that the young master? Could it be young master Ye Cheng preparing for tribulation again? A wave of stunned silence swept through the Gu clan compound. Since returning from the ancient battlefield, their young master had already endured the Thunder Tribulation once, vaulting straight into the Saint Emperor realm. Now, not even a month later, he was about to face it yet again. High above the sea of clouds, the sky darkened as rumbling thunderheads converged. Then, crack! At the same instant, Ye Cheng's aura flared. The storm released its full fury. Enormous purple bolts, thick as coiling dragons, crashed down in relentless succession. Each strike bore enough power to shake a venerable to his core and reduce the entire city of Jianglan to rubble. Gasps of horror rose from the onlooking clansmen. Even the Fufeng Empress, den deep within Ye Cheng's storage ring, stared in wide-eyed disbelief. He's really going through the Saint Emperor Thunderbolt again? They whispered. Indeed, this was the ultimate trial for a Saint Emperor cultivator, and Ye Cheng was facing it head-on, once more. Even the Thunderbolt of the Venerable Realm pales in comparison to the one Ye Cheng is confronting now. Any ordinary heavenly strike would convince the Fufeng Empress that she could effortlessly slay a common heavenly venerable, but this crackling maelstrom of lightning is leagues beyond that. Yet Ye Cheng stands unmoved. He hovers in midair, long hair cascading like rivers of silk, sleeves shimmering with divine light, the very picture of a fallen immortal. His expression remains utterly calm. There is not a trace of fear in his eyes, only cool indifference as the thunderbolt hurtles toward him. Had he faced such a titanic storm before refining his chaos body, it might have splintered his mind. But now, he lets out a single contemptuous murmur. This petty thunder tribulation dares to block my path? And with that, he braces himself, ready to turn the heavens' fury into dust. Chapter 1998. Ye Cheng chuckled, raised a hand, and pointed at the roiling thundercloud overhead. Break! At his command, a shockwave rippled through the sky. Under the astonished gaze of Empress Fufeng and the tens of thousands of cultivators gathered below, countless strands of Xuanhuang Qi swirled at Ye Cheng's bidding. They converged and crystallized into the purest Xuankai Chao's divine light, a voracious energy that coalesced into a massive vortex above his head. From that spinning maelstrom emanated an all-consuming pressure, as if it could engulf the world itself. The vortex's immense pull tore the furious lightning from the cloud and drew it into its core. But Ye Cheng was not done. The chaos divine light within the vortex transmuted the deadly bolts, potent enough to slay ordinary heavenly venerables, into a crystalline stream of divine power. That torrent of energy flowed directly into Ye Cheng's body, each pulse intensifying his physical form and sharpening his sea of consciousness. Is this a chaotic body? No way, he's an innate chaotic body. Inside the storage ring, Empress Fufeng stood frozen in astonishment. In the days since their pact, Ye Cheng had produced exactly the elixirs she needed, gradually stabilizing her soul and nearly restoring her shattered body. Only the final few pills remained to complete her recovery. She felt deep gratitude for his aid, but even more, growing admiration for his unparalleled talent. She had watched every step of his alchemical work. Ingredients were astonishingly scarce, sometimes only 1 or 2 imperial medicines, or none at all, yet each elixir emerged with a perfect radiant pattern and astonishing potency. Such results would have shamed every master artisan in the Ziwei Imperial Palace. Empress Fufeng had assumed she'd seen the limit of his skill, until now. Before her very eyes, Ye Cheng reached out to the heavens and drew down the thunder tribulation itself. Brilliant arcs of lightning crackled around him, yet he simply absorbed the raw, chaotic power into his body as if it were a nourishing brew. Watching him tame and ingest celestial thunder, Empress Fufeng's heart thundered in her chest. She could scarcely tear her gaze away. Ye Cheng hovered amid the roiling storm clouds, every muscle in his body taut with focus. Lightning crackled all around him, each bolt a deadly trial far beyond his previous limits. To the untrained eye, attempting to absorb such raw, celestial energy would have spelled certain destruction. Even Empress Fufeng, standing on the palace balcony below, watched in stunned silence. Boom! A series of thunderous detonations rolled across the heavens. In a blinding flash, Ye Cheng channeled the final surge of the tribulation into his core. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the tempest collapsed. The black clouds unraveled, revealing a calm, blue sky. A hush fell over Jianglan City, one born of disbelief, quickly giving way to uproarious cheers. Below, cultivators strained their necks, eyes shining with elation. In the courtyard of the Gu family estate, elders and clansmen alike rushed forward, their faces alight with pride. The younger disciples bowed deeply, admiration clear in their every gesture. None dared doubt that one of their own had just broken through to the esteemed Holy Emperor realm. Amid the celebration, Gu Yuan stood a short distance off, arms folded, brow furrowed. His gaze remained fixed on his son, who now floated serenely above the pavilion roof. Why did Ye Cheng summon the entire clan? He wondered. His son had never cared for grand ceremonies, and the Holy Emperor realm, while difficult to attain, hardly warranted such fanfare, or so he thought. As Ye Cheng slowly descended, the assembled crowd parted like the sea before a great ship. Silence fell once more, this time laced with reverence. Every eye followed him, some in awe, others in envy, but all united in the recognition of a single truth. Today, Ye Cheng had crossed a threshold few mortals could ever dream of. Gu Yuan's heart skipped a beat, and his eyes lit up. He stared skyward, as if searching the heavens for answers, and in that instant, an incredible possibility seized him. Perhaps there was no need to marshal the entire clan merely to breach the Holy Emperor realm. What if they dared to go even further, beyond the divine sovereign itself, straight into the venerable realm? If his son, Ye Cheng, could shatter that barrier, he would become a venerable, and with such power, he could unite every branch of the Gu family across the 9 domains. The Jianglin line, tied by blood to Ye Cheng, and all other direct descendants would rise with renewed vigor. Under Ye Cheng's brilliant leadership, the Gu family might not only reclaim its former glory, but even surpass the legendary heights of antiquity. So Qinger really believes our Gu family can outshine the ancient clans, Gu Yuan murmured, his gaze fixed on Ye Cheng as he hovered in midair, energy crackling around him. 2 realms in one breakthrough, from the Emperor Dao to the Venerable, seemed an impossible gulf to cross. Yet if his son could do it, the Gu family's future would be reborn. High above the sea of clouds, Ye Cheng, still acclimating to his newfound Saint Emperor realm, slowly opened his eyes. He stared up at the fading thundercloud overhead and let out a soft, confident smile. "Are you in such a hurry to leave? I haven't had my fun yet." No sooner had he spoken than the chaos great divine power slumbering within his chaos body stirred to life. In an instant, an overwhelming force of devouring energy burst forth, ravenously pulling in the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Ye Cheng's form became the eye of a black hole, its reach spanning thousands, then tens of thousands, even millions of miles. Mountainous waves of spiritual essence crashed toward him and were swallowed whole. Under the cleansing surge of this boundless energy, his cultivation skyrocketed. Early Saint Emperor, middle Saint Emperor, late Saint Emperor, perfect Saint Emperor, each stage was eclipsed almost before he registered the change. Boom! A thunderous roar rolled across the skies, shaking the sea of clouds itself. Far below, the cultivators of Jianglan City gaped in astonishment, powerless to look away as Ye Cheng's aura blazed like a newly kindled sun. The thunderclouds that had only moments before scattered now roiled back into being, grander and more awe-inspiring than ever. If the previous lightning tribulation had been confined to Jianglan City, this one was different. Its boundless storm clouds stretched across the entire southern reaches of the spiritual domain, spanning both Han and Qin. From 1,000,000 miles away, cultivators felt the electric charge humming through the air. Even the great sects and the domain's most powerful figures couldn't ignore it. They emerged from seclusion, soaring skyward to witness the spectacle unfolding to the south. Astonishment lit their faces as someone finally whispered, "That's the Fengzun lightning tribulation. Praise the heavens! A venerable is on the verge of ascension in our domain at last." Though no one could pinpoint the exact spot of the trial, their suspicion was unanimous. The cultivator undergoing tribulation must be His Highness Ye Cheng. As they all gazed toward the gathering storm in the southern sky, their hearts thundered with anticipation, certain that Ye Cheng stood at its very center, challenging fate itself. All across the spiritual domain, the only person now capable of ascending to the venerable realm was Ye Cheng. Even the great powers of the Han Qin Empire watched in awe when the Thunder Tribulation first appeared. Their gazes, all of them, were drawn to the Gu family's Jianglin branch, standing dead center beneath the roiling storm. Word spread like wildfire. The Gu family is about to produce a venerable Han Qin Empire, Jiang family manor. Atop the main tower, the venerable elder of the Jiang clan stared into the swirling thunderclouds, his expression a mask of despair. Lightning danced behind distant peaks, yet he seemed frozen in time, whispering words only the wind could carry away. How many years had he waited, hoping for this day, only to watch it slip out of their grasp? Behind him, Jiang Baiwei pressed her lips into a thin line. She was pale, every muscle tense, yet she said nothing. Memories tormented her, her youthful pride, her family's ruthless scheming, actions that had driven her beloved husband away. If only they had shown mercy back then, he might now be the very venerable, enduring tribulation beneath those clouds. Together, they could have risen on Ye Cheng's coattails, reclaiming the honors their house once held. Now, all that remained was regret. As a jagged bolt illuminated the sky, Baiwei's heart clenched. The storm's roar was a reminder of what they'd lost, and of the Gu family's triumph. Anyone who had just passed their tribulation could effortlessly obliterate the Jiang family, or even lay waste to entire dynasties like Han or Qin. In the Jiang clan's minds, from Jiang Baiwei to every member, nothing prevailed but crushing regret. High above Jianglin City, Ye Cheng hovered within a vast sea of thunderclouds. His white robes shimmered like fresh snow as torrents of lightning danced all around him, concealing him from any external gaze. Had anyone dared look up, they'd have been frozen in terror. Each bolt was potent enough to scar a Saint Venerable's complexion. Yet Ye Cheng sat serenely, legs crossed, eyes half closed, invoking the raw, chaotic power now coursing through his veins. To Ye Cheng, every thunderclap was nourishment for his cultivation. Whenever he neared a breakthrough, he simply raised a hand and drew in dozens of crackling bolts, using their energy to push past his limits. Far below, the people of Jianglin City remained oblivious to the extraordinary scene unfolding above them. Empress Fufeng stood frozen, her lips parting in disbelief. What? Can a lightning tribulation really be overcome like this? She stared at Ye Cheng, who sat serenely amid the storm as if he were simply meditating in a quiet chamber rather than facing the very wrath of heaven. His composure was so absolute that she couldn't help blurting out a curse. It wasn't that she was petty, this was simply too outrageous to accept. Even a genuine true immortal reborn wouldn't confront such divine fury so effortlessly. Her astonishment barely registered before the air around them began to change. As Ye Cheng's cultivation concurrently advanced, his control over the primal chaos chi deepened. Lightning bolts that had once crackled with lethal intensity now flickered and died. One by one, the thunderheads unraveled. Each jagged flash of electricity dissipated into nothingness. Within moments, the oppressive black clouds had completely vanished. From the heart of the clearing sky, Ye Cheng emerged. His long robes were immaculate, no scorch marks, no specks of ash. His countenance was as flawless as a sculpted deity's, and his eyes gleamed with a newfound radiance. Empress Fufeng could only gape, her earlier shock eclipsed by the undeniable truth before her. Ye Cheng had passed the lightning tribulation with unprecedented mastery. Had anyone not witnessed it with their own eyes, they would never have believed that Ye Cheng had just endured and overcome a thunder tribulation of such titanic force. Below him, the storm clouds unfurled and dissipated, revealing a sea of ethereal mist. From the edge of Jianglin City to the farthest reaches of the southern spiritual domain, a single thunderous chorus arose. All hail, young Master Gu! Congratulations on your ascension to the venerable realm. Long live His Highness Ye Cheng, newly established as venerable. Clansmen and outsiders alike, nobles, cultivators, merchants, all bowed in unison across the cloud-carpeted sky. Ye Cheng offered a measured smile and swept his hand gently, bidding them rise. Then his gaze settled on the grand Gu family estate below. Now that he had attained the rank of venerable, he sensed the lifeblood of every single Gu clansman, coursing through the world. With nothing more than his will, he could enhance an heir's blood talent, or strip another of theirs, relegating them to insignificance. This was the unrivaled authority he now wielded, the first venerable to emerge since the Gu family's long decline. A breeze stirred his robes as golden light painted the horizon. In this moment, Ye Cheng knew the era of his family's downfall had ended, and the age of its resurgence had truly begun. Buzz! A low, trembling hum echoed through the Gu family mansion in Jianglan City. One by one, Gu Yuan and the other clan members were suddenly bathed in an intense, golden radiance. Under its purifying glow, their auras swelled and solidified, so powerful in fact that many of them felt their cultivation realms shatter old limits and rise to new heights. Ye Cheng looked on in stunned silence, eyes wide with disbelief. He had felt the blood transformation before, but never on such a grand scale. This surge is incredible, he breathed, heart-pounding. Could the blood transformation really be this profound? Chapter 199. When a Gu clansman breaks through to the Emperor realm, a dramatic bloodline transformation follows, and this time, Ye Cheng had no reason to be surprised that his family's overall talent would rise a full tier when he stepped into the venerable realm. What did catch him off guard, however, was just how great that leap proved to be. Ye Cheng had quietly hoped that a handful of relatives might ascend to Orange Fate status in this phase of bloodline sublimation. After all, Orange Fate cultivators possess excellent potential. They can routinely attain the Saint realm, and in due time, even the Dao realm. With precious opportunities and ample resources, the path to the Emperor realm lies well within reach. These Orange Fate practitioners form the very backbone of the Gu clan, and the youngest prodigies, Yunxi, Qingchen, and Yi Ren, are destined to lead the family forward. Although the Gu clan still falls short of the ancient houses and immortal inheritances, this sudden surge in talent and power cements their place among the rising sects of the cultivation world. Ye Cheng's heart brimmed with certainty. His clan's newfound potential was already enough to rival the ancient families, and even challenge true immortals. Once he himself took that final step into the Emperor realm, the Gu bloodline would surge forward still again, carrying every member to immortal heights. Yet, as he watched them now, it was clear he needn't wait for his own breakthrough. Their talents had already blossomed to an astonishing degree. Scanning the courtyard, he saw flickering destiny sigils dancing above every Gu family member's head. Spirit Fire Body, Thunder Body, Swift Wind Spirit Body. Nearly all had reached the rare purple tier of innate talent. Even more remarkable, 30% had pierced through to the legendary orange tier. Among them stood the family's three prodigies, Gu Yuan, Gu Ling, and Gu Wangshuan, each poised for greatness. Gu Yuan and Gu Ling had already broken through to the 9th rank of the orange tier, their confidence unshakable. Ye Cheng let a small smile play at his lips. The Gu family was on the cusp of a transformation they had never dared imagine, one he would lead them into, not as a distant future promise, but as an imminent reality. When Ye Cheng last broke through into the imperial realm, even his elder child Yunxi awakened a rare purple innate destiny, already far outpacing every other clan member. Now, Yunxi has leapt ahead again. His once red flame physique has ascended into a golden destiny, the Wind and Fire Saint. Though he sits at gold rank 1, that still places him among the realm's top prodigies. As long as he lives, he will remain the Empire's foremost talent. If Yunxi's bloodline inheritance blossomed so spectacularly, his younger brother was bound to benefit even more. Ye Cheng's breakthrough has indeed turbocharged his children's fates. Young Gu Qingchen originally bore 2 destinies, one purple, the Holy Physique, and one orange, the Burning Flame Spirit Body. The moment his father entered the venerable realm, both surged forward. The Holy Physique shot straight to gold rank 9, transforming into the legendary Chaos Scion. Ye Cheng felt a surge of power ripple through his veins as he inherited a fragment of Gu Changqing's Chaos Body talent. His comprehension and cultivation accelerated overnight, and his raw strength leapt to unprecedented heights, his overall combat power shooting up in a single bound. Even more astonishing was the metamorphosis of his Burning Flame Spirit Body. What had only been a 3rd-grade orange tier manifestation instantly bloomed into the 1st-grade Scarlet tier Nirvana Emperor Body. Nirvana Emperor Body, the ancient records whispered, bestows the innate inheritance of the nirvana heavenly art, the supreme holy law. Its depths can be plumbed all the way to the saint realm, and it harbors the titanic might of nirvana itself. From this body, one may evolve the nirvana divine fire and glimpse the true cycle of life and death. In offense, it incinerates and annihilates without mercy. In defense, it coalesces into an immortal shield. As the fate blessing of this prodigious inheritance settled around him, Ye Cheng's cultivation soared. Within heartbeats, he shattered his limits and ascended to the perfected God-King realm, merely a hair's breadth from stepping into the Xuanhuang realm. Scattered among the onlookers, the Gu family cultivators blinked back to reality, their jaws hanging in stunned silence. Shock and awe burned in their eyes as they stared at the young man who had just rewritten his destiny. They scarcely had time to marvel at Ye Cheng's transformation before another miracle unfolded. As soon as his fate stabilized, Gu Yunxi's destiny began to awaken in perfect synchronicity. Though she did not share Ye Cheng's rare dual fate, her purple sky eclipse thunderbody was already a true 9th-grade gold talent. Even Ye Cheng's burning flame spirit body, once only orange quality, had just been elevated to red. Yet Yunxi's progress left them both stunned. Infused with the refined, sublimated power of her bloodline, the little girl's purple sky eclipse thunderbody transcended its limits. It blossomed into a 5th-grade red talent, the fabled, heavenly evil holy body. With this divine physique, she could not only summon and command thunder, she now wielded the very force of heavenly tribulations themselves, a far cry from her earlier, single-tier lightning attribute. Her talent remained nothing short of extraordinary. Gu Yunxi's new form granted her an innate kinship with the 4 primal elements, earth, wind, water, and fire, and bestowed upon her the ancestral legacy known as the Great Divine Calamity Technique. In that moment, both siblings stood on the brink of a power few mortals could ever hope to claim. Great divine powers are the supreme inheritances of the ancient world, attainable only by those who have surpassed the Emperor realm. They transcend ordinary martial arts, combining devastating offensive techniques with advanced cultivation methods into a single, all-encompassing system. Take, for example, the Great Chaos Divine Technique that Ye Cheng awakened not long ago. This power not only grants him a variety of lethal assaults, fueled by raw chaotic energy, but it also includes a secret regimen for cultivating that same energy to strengthen both body and spirit. By contrast, Yunxi has mastered the Great Calamity Divine Technique, which, while not quite on par with the Chaos Technique's top ranking among the 3,000 divine powers, still boasts enough destructive force to place it firmly within the top 30. According to the system's records, once Yunxi refines her Tianye Saint body to perfection through Calamity's exercises, her physique will evolve into the 5-fold primal forces of earth, fire, wind, and thunder. At that stage, reshaping an entire realm and forging a new world of chaos will be as effortless as breathing. Even a fully realized saint would be reduced to ashes before the unleashed might of Yunxi's Great Calamity Technique. Though his third daughter, Gu Yiren, is still too young to have formally begun her cultivation, her innate talent has already undergone a breathtaking transformation. The Yuanyang Burning Heaven body she was born with has evolved into the Crimson 7th-grade innate Lihuo Divine Body, a living flame of Tao that will grow in strength alongside her. When it reaches full maturity, its power will rival that of any immortal forged artifact. Watching his clan's heirs flourish, Ye Cheng could hardly contain his astonishment. No ancient noble lineage could boast comparable talent, let alone his own children. He was convinced that not even those immortals who had ascended to the celestial realms and their prodigies in the mortal world could hope to surpass his offspring. If he himself was stunned by this revelation, the Fufeng Empress at his side was even more so. When he first declared his goal of guiding the Gu clan to true immortality, she had brushed off his ambition as grandiose. Now, her doubts had vanished. Ye Cheng's Chaos body talent was already extraordinary, but even without him, the 3 young disciples before her, Gu Yiren, Gu Yunxi, and Gu Qingchen, had repeatedly left Empress Fufeng in awe. And then, at this precise moment, Empress Fufeng's head snapped up. Her spirit surged from the depths of her storage ring and drifted between heaven and earth as she uttered a soft, surprised murmur. Ye Cheng looked up, a spark of recognition lighting his eyes. "Your Majesty, did you feel it?" Her voice echoed gently in his mind. Since awakening his chaos body, he had acquired the uncanny ability to sense even the subtlest shifts in the cosmic laws. Now, the once hidden principles of the great Tao were slowly unfurling, the veils that had long obscured them dissolving away. Ordinary cultivators, once blind to these truths, suddenly stood on the brink of comprehending the Tao's true essence. And within him, the sword heart he had labored to refine began to pulse of its own accord. No longer did he need to forcefully probe its depths, it was coming alive, guiding him toward deeper understanding. Ye Cheng felt it the moment his chaos body and chaos sword body joined forces. His sword intent leapt to a new, almost unheard of level. Around him, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth thickened as if the very air were charged with power, silencing every other sensation in its wake. Had he not just broken through to the venerable realm and awakened his chaos body, these subtle shifts might have slipped past his awareness. Yet under the guiding light of his innate fate at the immortal life tier, a deep premonition stirred within him. He remembered the rumors from the outside world, and now he knew they were true. Every detail matched the ancient records. These were the omens that heralded a coming golden age. At the heart of it all lay the awakening of his chaotic heritage, and, despite his hesitation to accept it, he realized that his own breakthrough had accelerated the arrival of this new era. A clear voice cut through his thoughts. "Congratulations, fellow Taoist. The advent of the Golden Age heralds the dawning of immortal fate. Fellow Taoist, there is hope you may ascend to the upper realms in this lifetime." Within the glowing confines of the storage ring, Empress Fufeng's triumphant voice rang out, and Ye Cheng returned her joy with a warm smile. Though the onset of this golden age had taken everyone by surprise, he felt only eager anticipation, yet his ambitions diverged sharply from the Empress's assumption. In this golden age, he thought, I won't be the only one ascending. He turned to regard his clansmen, still caught up in celebration. The children danced around one another with bright laughter. His wives stood close by, their faces lit with pride. In each pair of eyes he saw hope, and in his own, a spark of unyielding resolve. The idea of ascending alone seemed hollow. If we are to forge a true immortal race, every one of us must rise together, he vowed silently. But he kept his thoughts to himself. For now, such a declaration would sound like mere bravado until he could prove his conviction and marshal the strength to lead them all beyond the mortal realm. Ye Cheng studied the clansmen arrayed behind him. The Gu family's talent pool was undeniably impressive, but their rise had been alarmingly swift. In the wake of 2 bloodline transformations, the family's overall power had leapt forward, yet only marginally. While Ye Cheng's own killing prowess now equaled that of the realm's supreme Daozun giants, still no one in the clan could match the might of a Tianzun. Not even a Saint Venerable under Daozun walked among them. The strongest after Ye Cheng was his second wife, Xuanhuanglan Qingxuan, whose power barely brushed the pinnacle of the venerable realm. With such limited forces, seizing the initiative in the coming golden age remained a distant dream. A headache throbbed at Ye Cheng's temples as he paced restlessly. Then he recalled the faint chime of the system prompt, the same sound that had heralded his chaotic body transformation. His pulse quickened. Without hesitation, he summoned the system interface and began scanning its contents. Moments later, his eyes flared with renewed determination. Ye Cheng's eyes lit up as the message appeared on his screen. This treasure has arrived just in time. A glittering notification, framed in radiant gold, hovered before him. Congratulations, host. You have attained immortality for the first time and earned a special reward, the Holy Tao Treasure, Primordial Furnace. Would you like to claim it now? Chapter 200. The information panel before him glowed with ethereal light. The Holy Furnace, a supreme sacred treasure, ranked among the top-tier holy weapons. It can harness the fortunes of heaven and earth, channel the true essence of the sacred way, and wield unparalleled suppressive power. In its evolved form, it becomes a soul-enhancing sanctuary. Anyone who cultivates inside will see their training speed multiplied by at least tenfold. Ye Cheng's eyes widened in disbelief. A reward like this could change everything, and it had arrived just when he needed it most. But as he flipped through the system's fine print, caution tugged at his excitement. To open the furnace's soul-enhancing sanctuary, one must feed it spirit stones, spirit crystals, or other rare treasures imbued with pure spiritual energy. The larger the sanctuary, and the longer it remained active, the more resources it would consume. And there was one more limitation. In its current grade, the holy furnace could boost cultivation efficiency by no more than 100-fold. Any increase beyond that threshold would demand an upgrade of the furnace itself. In other words, while this holy furnace was undeniably powerful, it was not yet the ultimate sacred artifact. Ye Cheng let out a slow breath. The path ahead was clear. Secure enough spirit stones and crystals, and someday find a way to elevate the furnace to its true potential. As long as Ye Cheng could gather enough sacred materials, the sect's holy treasure stood a real chance of advancing to immortal grade status. But the materials lie too far away, he muttered, scanning his reserves, though I have more than enough to expand my soul space. He smiled to himself. After returning from the ancient battlefield, he'd acquired a wealth of treasures perfectly suited for this task. Quietly, Ye Cheng invoked the extraction technique. A golden mote of light sprang forth and condensed into a tiny bronze tripod cauldron, 3 ears, 4 stout legs, barely 7 inches across. At his mental command, it swelled, its surface darkening into weathered bronze inscribed with ancient runes, until it towered well over a man's head. A low hum thrummed through every hall of the Gu manor, rattling doors and windows. Startled household members sprang to their feet and rushed toward the commotion. When they saw the newly revealed soul cauldron, their breaths caught. None of them had yet reached a high cultivation realm, but even from a distance, they felt its overwhelming presence. This was no ordinary relic. Its very essence pulsed with a mysterious Taoic might that demanded reverence and struck fear into all who stood before it. Empress Fufeng's pale brow furrowed in surprise. As a reincarnated true immortal who had ascended to the Holy Emperor realm, her vision pierced beyond the ordinary, and she knew at a glance the artifact in Ye Cheng's hand was no common cooker. This holy stove, she realized, was the highest grade of its kind, a legendary inheritance so precious that even the venerable ancient clans and immortal sects jealously hoarded it and rarely dared to use it. And here this young man had simply produced it from thin air? Ye Cheng, where did you? The Empress managed, voice tight with disbelief. Before he could answer, Gu Yuan, Ye Cheng's stern-faced father, stepped forward, his eyes alight. Father, he said with restrained excitement, this holy stove was something Ye Cheng discovered on his travels. He brought it home for the family. Ye Cheng gave a brief nod and closed his palm around the stove. It can multiply cultivation efficiency, he explained calmly. Its secret core refines spiritual energy to an even higher grade. As his words settled, every member of the Gu household, from the respected elders to the eager disciples, fell silent, then erupted in exclamations. None dared doubt the stove's power, for even legendary sects would covet such a treasure. Without hesitation, Ye Cheng released his storage ring. A torrent of resources, spiritual stones and crystals of every size burst for her in a cascade of glittering light, racing into the stove's furnace. In an instant, the air crackled with potent energy, and the chamber thrummed as if awakened by a god. Eyes wide, the gathered family watched their fortunes and their futures ignite. As the torrent of spiritual energy washed through and purified the Yunsheng furnace, its aura deepened into something unfathomably profound. At its climax came a thunderous roar, boom, and above the furnace rended the air itself, a swirling vortex of spiritual light, its currents rippling like liquid starlight. Within that silent maelstrom shimmered glimpses of countless chaotic realms, each whispering ancient Taoist secrets. Though no one had yet crossed its threshold, even the faint resonance of these mysteries set every member of the Gu clan buzzing with anticipation. Ye Cheng's voice cut through the charged air, calm but unwavering. You go first, I'll enter last. He stood sentinel at the vortex's rim, hands weaving the complex seals that stabilized the Yunsheng space's entrance. Gu Yuan, the clan's head, bowed respectfully. At his gesture, the eldest elders stepped forward in solemn procession, followed by Gu Yuan himself, then the younger disciples of the Gu family. One by one, they passed through the shimmering veil and into the sanctified silence beyond. Inside lay a broad chamber, its floor lined with velvet meditation cushions. Each person chose a spot, settled cross-legged, and began the intricate breathing techniques that would draw spiritual energy into their dantian. The chamber hummed with harmonious intent, until, all at once, every cultivator's spirit sense tingled sharply. Buzz! An urgent vibration thrummed through the Ye Cheng space, as if the very air were whispering a dire warning. Eyes darted, hearts quickened. The journey had just begun, and already the doorway to deeper mysteries beckoned with unseen challenges. Buzz! The void shuddered as pillar after pillar of divine light descended, each beam reflecting the figures below in crystal-clear clarity. These lights, white, cyan, blue, purple, orange, gold, and the rarest red, signified the magnitude of a cultivator's breakthrough. White meant an 11 to 12-fold boost in efficiency, cyan 13 to 14 times, blue around 20-fold, purple 30-fold, orange 40-fold, gold 50-fold, and red heralded an unparalleled increase. Within the Gu clan, many of the eldest members, whose bloodlines had grown feeble over the centuries, could only summon the weakest lights, lengthening their lives but making little real progress. Most among them shone with blue beams, raising their cultivation rates by about 20 times. Yet two figures outshone the rest. Gu Wangchuan effortlessly awakened the purple column, signifying a 30-fold leap. Equally stirring was his father, Gu Yuan, whose bloodline had twice transcended the mortal realm. As Ye Cheng's biological father, he was destined for greatness, and indeed he unlocked the 9th grade Orange Tier Fate talent, granting him a 40-fold increase. Even so, both men ranked just below the clan's singular unrivaled powerhouse. Shortly after, Zhang Lianqin and Lan Qingxuan stepped into the soul enrichment chamber one after the other. Zhang Lianqin triggered a 40-fold amplification, summoning a towering orange pillar of divine light. Lan Qingxuan followed with a 50-fold surge, bathing the room in golden radiance. The assembled Gu clan members watched in stunned silence. Then came the Yunxi siblings. Each of them unleashed efficiency boosts exceeding 50-fold, bathing themselves in crimson spiritual light. Their cultivation auras thundered so powerfully the entire clan felt it reverberate through their bones. Yet none of these spectacles compared to what happened next. Once every other member had settled into their cultivation, Ye Cheng stepped into the chamber. He took his place on the central cushion, crossed his legs, and closed his eyes to focus his mind. Suddenly, a deafening boom, the very air quaked. Under the wide-eyed gaze of the Gu family, an immense oceanic aura descended upon Ye Cheng, rippling with prismatic divine light. In that moment, his cultivation momentum eclipsed everyone else's, leaving even the Yunxi siblings' astounding displays far behind. No further explanation was needed. The moment Ye Cheng entered the Ye Cheng space, his cultivation efficiency soared to its very limit, a breathtaking 99-fold increase. Seated cross-legged on the glowing platform, he calmly inhaled and exhaled the boundless spiritual energy that permeated the realm. With each breath, he absorbed as much power as he would have in an entire day of ordinary practice. The rest of the Gu clan watched in stunned silence. Gu Yuan, Ye Cheng's father, stood apart with his arms folded, shaking his head in both amazement and pride. His younger children and grandchildren had only managed 10 or 20-fold gains here, improvements that spoke to their solid but unremarkable talent. Ye Cheng alone had tapped into the maximum amplification the Ye Cheng space could offer. From that day on, the entire family remained within the sacred confines of the Ye Cheng space, each eager to push past their previous limits and discover just how far their cultivations could rise. The entire Nanchuan divine continent, every great sect, every hidden alliance, had been stunned by the sudden swell in spiritual energy and the rapid evolution of the heavenly way. Of all those caught off guard, Tianji Tower felt it first. Renowned for its mastery of celestial secrets and long ranked at the bottom of the Tiandi twin list, it was nonetheless famed throughout Shenzhou as the foremost hidden sect. Ancestor! Ancestor! On the highest terrace of Tianji Tower, suspended above the nine-heaven sea of clouds, a clamorous shout cut through the still air. In his inner sanctum, the venerable Tianji ancestor, eyes closed in meditation, frowned at the interruption. "Such chaos," he muttered. "Did I not teach you better decorum? When great events occur, you must remain composed. Shouting won't solve anything." His tone was stern, but the current Tower Master, his devoted disciple, only bowed deeper, lips curling into a tense smile. "Ancestor, forgive my breach of etiquette," the Master said. "But we have no time for formalities. You must see this for yourself. The heavens themselves have shifted. A grand new era is upon us." The Tianji ancestor's eyes snapped open. "What? Have you lost your mind? I made a divination only 3 years ago. It's far too soon for the great era to begin. The omens won't manifest for another 7 or 8 years. Tianji's old ancestor sneered at his successor, paying no heed to the rebuttal. The master of Tianji Tower bristled and stomped his foot on the floor. "Ancestor," he said, "come outside and see for yourself. If you still doubt me, step out onto the cloud sea. One glance will convince you." "Are you still arguing?" the old ancestor snapped as he rose. He strode to the window, leapt effortlessly onto the misty expanse below, and paced across the rolling clouds. "Very well, I'll see with my own eyes. But mark my words, if I've misread the celestial signs, and you're making a mountain out of a molehill, you'll spend the next 10 years facing that wall, reflecting on your errors, and drilling your so-called Cloud G divine sign. Understand?" "Ah!"